there's scar tissue on this team. They've been beaten last year. I mean, they've been beaten in big games, and it hurts. And so there's part of it that I think will keep them. And they've got experience. They've got great leadership. Fred, guys on both sides of the squad. Trent, they're guys that are older. They carry the locker room. George, they're just. I think they'll handle it well. Like I said, when I say there's fear when you take a couple weeks off, that's true. But our group is probably as well ready to take the week off as anybody. I would think the Ravens, from what we've seen from them, are probably in a pretty good spot too.
Well, they are, because the Ravens lost yesterday 17-10 to the Steelers on the 2 Saturday games, which, by the way, the night game was amazing between the Colts and the Texans. And
Fun
let's
game.
give it up. Yeah, let's give it up to D'Amico Ryans and Bobby Slowick and those guys. They win 23-17. Let's go 4th and 1 to a third-string running back for the first down. What do you think, Colts? Yeah, that's a good idea. Sometimes
what do you have? 6 receptions the entire season? A little pressure.
Okay, season on the line. You want to throw it to Jonathan Taylor? Nah. You want to throw it to Zach Moss? Nah. Want to throw it to Michael Pittman? Nah. Want to throw it to our third-string running back? Yes. He dropped the ball. What a shocker.
Want to end the season? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, sometimes.
Well, I mean, it wasn't the best pass. I mean,
it was not Gardner Minshew. It was not.
A backup quarterback take him to the verge of the playoffs, man. I mean, Minshew is as serviceable of a backup, I think you can ask for. And he's a pretty young dude, and he's done this already a couple of times where I know his rookie season he fell off with Jacksonville when he stepped in as a starter. But he's been serviceable. He's been fine. That division's not great, and it may go through Houston for some time. CJ Stroud's a force, dude. And we'll see what happens when Richardson comes back. That could be a fun head-to-head for years to come. That AFC South with Jacksonville, CJ Stroud, and Houston, Jacksonville, CJ Stroud, Trevor Lawrence. They had a fun back-and-forth shootout earlier this year, and then you mix in Anthony Richardson. This could be a fun division.
Yeah, very good. Years. But good job. D'Amico Ryans, the former defensive coordinator of the 49ers.
Nice work.
Bobby Slowick, they were talking a lot about Kyle Shanahan and the tree. Things haven't. We'll see what happens tomorrow as far as the coaching tree is concerned. Everybody talking about Belichick's tree, Kyle's tree. I mean, Bobby Slowick's the offensive coordinator in Houston. Obviously, you've gone down the line. They showed that 2013 Washington coaching staff, as they always do, with LaFleur on it and McVay on it and Shanahan on it. And then they showed Slowick as well. So, again, congratulations to Houston. But the point of what Steve was saying there is the rest versus rust, right? We talked about it all week long on all the shows. What's the right thing to do? Dennis was talking about it. Look, you don't tempt the football guys, you just play guys. But there's a lot of guys that are out. They're not going to play Brock Purdy. That means from last week, and we were talking about in the postgame, from last week, the game against Washington to the divisional, which the speculation is the weekend of the 20th and 21st, but the speculation is the 49ers would play on the 20th. 3 weeks for some of these guys. Christian McCaffrey, who's out and needs the time. Brock Purdy is going to sit it out healthy. What's your concern level here, and what is this balance of rest versus rust? Because they do got to play some guys today.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to practice, right? I mean, these guys, these starters who aren't going to play in the game today, and then you have the 2 weeks until the next football game, it's going to be how you prepare. It's going to be, your rest and your treatment and your time in the weight room. But it's going to come down to your practice and how you prepare for a football game. I would love to see, this week, these guys get set up to start football game, just to keep your mind into it, maybe play a couple series and then take it off, instead of having an entire week of not even worrying about or getting your mind prepared for a football game. But that's not the way it is. But it's going to come down to how you practice. And, I haven't spent much time on the practice field, but I can remember when we practiced, it was pretty intense. I mean, everything had to be exact. There was no tackling, of course, but, the fundamentals were still there. Your stance, your reads, your hand placement, all that stuff was always something that they kind of stressed. So it's all about how you prepare and how you practice for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, my concern level is not too high just because we've seen this team come out of a bye. Now, again, you're talking about 3 weeks. We've seen a group of these players play hurt and then sit for some time. I mean, into the bye week, remember we had injuries out of or from Trent Williams with his groin early in the year, 5 or 6 weeks in. I think it was week 6 against the Browns. Same thing. Debo got banged up early on this season. Heck, Brandon Ayuk went down in week 2 against the Rams, I think, and did not come back into that game with a shoulder injury, and then ended up being okay, putting up several 100-yard seasons, or 100-yard games. I'm sort of the mindset that because this team has been to this position, not the bye week, but to the postseason and played deep into the year so many times as a core, and I know there's a lot of these guys who weren't on that 2019 Super Bowl team, but a lot of these guys were here in 2021. A lot of these guys were here last year. to go through what that was like without a bye week. I think the bye, because of how many vets are on this team and how much these guys work and how healthy they've been throughout the year, for the most part, I think the bye is going to do them more of a service than it is going to hurt them. Now, to Dennis's point, the offense is all about timing. It's all about rhythm. And Steve Young, you heard him there with us earlier this week with Sam. For me, it takes a half for every game that you miss. It was like you got to get a half to get back up to speed. And it's like you don't want that. The Niners start fast, and they've been at their best when they start fast. Now, the rest versus rust thing, who knows? Can you be rusty? Sure. And if they come out and they're not playing well early on, they'll say that. If they come out and they're playing hot, they'll say, they were rested. Steve Young's great line said, I always say Newt Rockne gave a speech and the team played well. It's true. Had the team not played well, we wouldn't have known about the speech, and it would have nothing to do with the way stuff goes down. So chicken and egg thing, who knows? We'll see how it plays out.
Look, I think it's a wonderful problem to have. That
Agreed.
Each situation is different. I think that what we do when we talk about things like this is we talk about it just as a whole. I don't know the Ravens situation. I don't know what their injury situation is as intricately as we do the 49ers, but here's what I do know. Christian McCaffrey's banged up. Jennings is banged up. Trent Williams is older and needs the time off to me. Some of the guys, Hargrave has been banged up. Jared Brown has been banged up. Gibson is a veteran. Ward has played a lot. I mean, these guys have been going at it since July, and they've had a myriad of injuries, and they're in some certain places in older football teams. So to me, to get that extra week off, 3 weeks, it's not optimal, but we're sitting here nitpicking. They've got the number 1 seed, and everything comes through here. Last year, they had to go to Philadelphia. That's not a great situation. In 21, they had to go to the Rams. If both of those games are here, I believe they win. Now, it's hard to say because does Brock Purdy get hurt? But I just know that Rams game, which basically was a home game, I guess, because there was so much red in the stands at SoFi, but still, if everything has to come through here, the last time that happened, they went to the Super Bowl in 2019, and even though they got off to a slow start against Minnesota, if everyone will remember that, Jimmy Garoppolo did not see Michael Kendricks, and finally Kendrick Bourne scores, and kind of
Stephon Diggs ended up falling down. Yeah, scoring a touchdown up the sideline.
Right. So but in the second half they ended up dominating. So it did take a little bit of time to get going against Minnesota that day, and then they just rolled Green Bay based on running the football. But I'll take that problem. It's a great debate and it's an interesting discussion. But the reality of it is that everything comes through here regardless of what. And I think that there are injuries that need to be healed, especially Christian McCaffrey. My concern today is the guys who play. It's unlikely. I don't want to jinx anything. It's unlikely that there's this catastrophic injury. That does happen, but not often. But the thing that would scare me is, Trent Williams plays a quarter and he tweaks or gets a high ankle sprain or something like that. Those things happen all the time. So then it's like, oh no, Trent's got 2 weeks to heal from his high ankle sprain. Can he do it? But you got to play somebody, and Kyle told you guys this, Copes, when you talked to him, is you can't sit everybody. You try to sit a lot of guys, but there are a lot of veterans on this team. It sounds like Trent's going to play. I would put Trent in bubble wrap today, man. There's certain guys on this team where it's like, I'm sorry, Jalen Moore, but going Trent to Jalen Moore is a massive change.
There's like 4 guys. Take one for the team.
I'm just not doing it. If Brock Purdy's not playing, to me, I understand the positional value. But Trent Williams, you are not playing. But we'll see.
Now, go ahead, Dennis.
It's weird. Being a player. It's to say. Because football. Injuries happen in football.
Yeah, they do.
Right. It is what it is. So you play, and you know the risks, and you're on the football field. But you love to play the game, right? You love practicing. Some guys don't love practice, but you love playing. You love playing. You caught
yourself saying our practice.
Did you love practice, Dennis?
I actually enjoy practice.
Yeah,
practice was because I'm a drill guy. I love a drill. I love all the different drills you do. So you love I love to practice, but you really love to play, and it's tough to stand on the sidelines and watch someone else play.
Especially if they play well, you're like, damn it!
You're like, oh, I should have played. So I understand where it's all coming from. But I just think back to some of the guys that I played with. You couldn't tell Ronnie Lott he couldn't play in the football. He had concussions, and you couldn't tell him he couldn't play in a football game. Charles Haley, he never rested. You could never tell
true.
Charles. You could not.
Charles Haley, nothing.
You're going to play in the football because that's what we loved. You love to play football and to be in front of the crowd and all that stuff that comes with it, being announced before the game and all that stuff. That's part of it. You love it, and it's hard. At least it was for me, for someone to say you have to sit. So, injuries happen. It could happen in the playoffs. It could happen anytime. In practice, we saw this week. You lose guys in practice. So
Jason Verrett.
Yeah, again. So it's tough to tell. It's got to be tough for a coach to say, listen, we're not going to play you today. and this is your profession, and watch someone play your position. It's got to be tough, but it is what it is. It's what it is. It's what the NFL is about today. And like I said, everyone's doing it, so it's just part of the culture now of the NFL. But it's got to be tough to sit on the sidelines and watch somebody play.
Well, and Kyle sort of said the opposite. He said we were all hyped, and he goes, because remember the last time we had the number 1 seed in the bye, it was 2019. To your point, John, and they end up with the bye on the final. Like they don't know until the Seattle play, until the Dre Greenlaw stop at the goal line. And he says that we didn't realize it didn't really hit home until we're on the plane going home, thinking, oh boy, we thought we might have had to play this Saturday. Like we could have had to play this week. So now we get to kick back and sort of enjoy it. But he said this time, getting the 3 weeks basically because of this week, already knowing you've got it sewn up, is a much different situation. He said they were all hyped coming back from Washington. I told the guys, yeah, it's going to be nice. We get the time. But he said, I woke up the next morning and looked at everything, and I was like, oh, yeah, you only get 7 inactives, and we got like 5 or 6 hurt guys already. So you can only bring up 2 from the practice squad. It'll be a weird thing to try to navigate today, but I don't think it's as hard for him to tell people. It might have been tough for Dennis to go back and be like, you know what, actually, I do need you to play. Yeah. You know what I mean, like it's tougher to say I need it now that I've told you we maybe don't.
Well, and here's the thing, too, is the offensive line outside of Trent is probably all going to play. If you look at the defensive line, Nick Bosa didn't have to play. Sorry, Randy Gregory, you're going to have to play 70 snaps. But here's the advantage that you're playing against with the Rams, is that they're not going to do a bunch of fancy stuff either. Now, Carson Wentz and Sam Darnold will tell you they want to throw the ball and they want to increase their value. They just flash something up on the screen. Carson Wentz, the starting quarterback today for the Rams, the former Eagle, has not played in an NFL football game for 371 days. And again, I guess he went with John Gruden and reset his mechanics and did all this stuff. So here's Carson Wentz going, hey, I'm at the crossroads of my career. I got to try to find an opportunity here. Can I throw the ball a few times? Sean McVay, now a few times you can. But
what he did for Baker last year.
Sure, exactly right.
Same
when
exact
he drove that play,
he won a game off the plane
down the field.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if either of these quarterbacks throw the ball more than, 22, 23 times, I'll be absolutely shocked, because what they want to do, both teams, is they want to run the football basically, not showing anything too fancy. They want to run the football a little bit. They want to run the clock, and they want to get out of here not injured. So I understand Darnold and Wentz are going to say, look, I might be playing for another contract on a team if I can show something here. But that's probably the last thing that either of these coaches want to do. And so along the defensive line, some guys are going to have to play, but there's depth there. You're going to have to play certain guys and kind of hold your breath. But if I was to target a few, Purdy's already out, CMC's already out. But, I don't want to see Trent Williams. I don't want to see Nick Bosa today. I don't want to see Fred Warner today. You got to play the receivers. I get it. But that's why Chris Conley's here and Willie Snead's here. Those are veteran players who on a day like today can play. I don't really want to see Debo or Ayuk very much.
Yeah. And the business side of football is that a lot of your incentives is playing time.
That's a good point.
I mean, it's sacks, it's tackles, it's percentages of the defense, it's starting each game. So, a lot of players look at that too. Like, this is an opportunity for me to gain some incentives for the offseason. So, there's a lot that goes to it. But again, it's a good problem to have. It's
Absolutely.
A great problem to have. And you said it, everything comes through here. So you want to have your best guys on the football field.
Week 18, Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champion Dennis Brown, John Lund with you. We're streaming on twitch.tv/thesportsleader, as well as YouTube, KNBR.com, and the KNBR app. Niners and the Rams. Niners at 12-4 entering today. The Rams at 9-7. A 125 kickoff for you. We'll talk more about the Pro Bowl selections. We'll talk more about the stats that ended the season. Basically every side of the ball. Offense, defense, even special teams last week doing all right and getting back on a high note to end their season. A lot of backups going to play today. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. And a great note from John there. Darnold against Wentz. It's Carson Wentz's first NFL game in 371 days. Last time I checked, that's over a year. When we come on back, we'll hear from 49ers general manager John Lynch, who joined Murph and Marcus as he does every week throughout the football season. A conversation with the 49ers GM and how they handle this week. We're trying to stay healthy and then get into the bye week before you take on an opponent in the divisional round. Right here from Levi Stadium, it's Week 18. John Lynch next on the Sports Leader.
We're talking about practice.
Live from Levi Stadium, Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champion Dennis Brown, John Lund with you. It's Week 18, and nobody big time is playing. At least that's the hope for the 49ers. Trent Williams may get some time, but we do not want to see him on the field if Brock Purdy is not going to be out there. It'll be Carson Wentz against Sam Darnold. Wentz's first game in 371 days. 49ers general manager John Lynch stopped by the morning show, as he does each and every week of the football season. He joined Murph and Marcus on Friday, and they opened up the conversation with John, asking him how he was feeling after clinching the number one seed in the NFL playoffs, or in the NFC playoff picture, after their win over Washington last week.
I'm doing awesome. Certainly, I think we were confident we were going to take care of business back in D.C., but really didn't anticipate Arizona helping us out the way they did. And that locker room was a fun scene after our game, getting to watch it and see it and hear the locker room explode, and then shortly thereafter kind of come back to reality and know that while a cool thing, and it certainly has implications. The one seed is it's a great it's one less game you have to play, most importantly, and there's challenges that come with it, but we worked hard to earn that, but that's certainly not been our goal to be the one seed. Our goal is far more than that. Now we got to focus on the Rams this week and then put a plan together as we head into the playoffs.
All right, John, so you've been through this a long time as a player and now as a GM and even as a broadcaster. This is you can set sports talk radio and social media to a clock every early January. What do you do as a one seed? What do you rest and what do you fear in rust? Do you have an overarching theory on that? Is it a case-by-case deal? And then I guess the ultimate question is, are you comfortable sitting your quarterback that long?
Yeah, so I think the ultimate objective is we find a way to get better. I mean, that's the hard thing in the NFL at this time in the year. It's guys are often tired, they're banged up. This season is a marathon, but the teams that do well in the playoffs are the teams that are still finding ways to get better. And so, but we all know that being healthy is a part of that. You have to have your best players available. Murph, the decisions were actually pretty easy because we had some guys that needed the week off in terms of just their health. They couldn't play. And so a lot of the decisions were made for us. I think, the thing that a lot of people don't understand, even people who watch football, we have a 53-man roster, 48 up on game day if you use 8 offensive linemen. So there's not a whole lot of wiggle. It's not like we can go put the JV team in we've got the guys on our roster. And then I think it's also important that we stay sharp. So we do our best accounting for everything. We have to make tough decisions. And yes, staying sharp's critical. And that's incumbent upon us, our coaching staff, putting together a great plan, not only in the game this weekend, but also in the practices. And the practices, I heard Kirby Smart talk about, they don't call it a bye week, they call it a work week. And I think that's what next week will be for us, because we're still very much in the mindset of finding ways to get better. And I can tell you and everyone out there that we've been in our first iteration of draft meetings, so I've been kind of in and out, not out as practice as much as but man, I went out to practice the last 2 days, for a little bit of it, and the energy was tremendous. Guys were flying around the field. So we're getting work done. We're getting better. And we've got the Rams on our mind for this week. And then we'll continue to find ways to get better moving forward.
Okay, so the quarterback. Number one, he makes the Pro Bowl. Unbelievable story. But number two, you guys are telling him you're good to sit from December 31 till January 20 or 21, whenever you guys play. So your theory on that, Steve Young came on KNBR and he said, I get nervous if I'm a quarterback, I'm not playing that long. What's your reaction?
Well, certainly understand, Steve and his perspective. I mean, who's got a better perspective? He did it. And, we certainly take all those things to account. Kyle had to make a tough decision. I think we took a lot of things into account, one of them being the way Brock started the season in Pittsburgh. He hadn't played games moving up, working up to that. Obviously had been in training camp. And then, I think we still have to understand the season he's had, he's still a guy who came off a major injury. And I think one thing we recognized coming off the bye during the middle of the season, it helped him. And so if we can kind of recreate that, by limiting his reps, not taking him out, he's out there preparing. But if we can pull back a little, I think we saw a great bump. And so those are tough decisions you have to make. It's one Kyle made and consulted with a lot of people. And we trust in the plan. And Brock's on board. And Sam will get a great opportunity this week. We'll see if Brandon Allen gets in there. We're all trusting in the plan, and that we made the best decisions we can.
And then, John, moving on from the quarterback to the backfield, we know Christian McCaffrey will not be playing this weekend. What's the latest status on Elijah Mitchell, who I know has been dealing with an illness this week at practice? And how do you think the carries are kind of divvied up in the backfield between him, Jordan Mason, and maybe even Ty Davis-Price this weekend?
Well, the good news, Elijah was back out on the field yesterday. As I'm sure you guys everybody out there listening, are experiencing in your homes, a lot of people sick right now, and that we've been dealing with that a little bit in our building, and it's just that time of year, right? And so, but Elijah was back on the field yesterday, so he and JP Mason will get some good work. The exciting thing for me was the way Elijah came in and picked us up. Christian wasn't ruled out of that game, could have come back, but man, Elijah made that an easy decision because Elijah went out in a big point in that game and critical drive and really took over that game along with his offensive line and the commitment to the run. Elijah, he always blows me away, his ability. He has struggled with some injuries and staying on the field, but as soon as he comes back, he's always ready. He never looks rusty, and that was the case the other day. He ran really well and was a big part of that win.
Yeah, we're talking to John Lynch, 49er GM, the GM of the 1 seed, and these first world problems of who do you play and who do you not play in this Rams game. By the way, the Rams role in all this, I mean, you guys are smart people. You have a grease board of the NFC playoff teams. You have a scenario where you might see these guys again. Is that in your mind going into this game?
Well, I think that the possibility that that we may face them. You could tell early in the year everyone talked about a reset year, and they've done a heck of a job of doing that. They're playing with a lot of young guys, but they have a big-time quarterback in Matthew Stafford. They've surrounded him with some really, the Cooper Kupps of the world, but then all of a sudden you throw in a Puka Nacua who's had a rookie season that may be unrivaled and unparalleled, and Kyron Williams has really emerged as a running back. They're playing more physical brand of football, so they're running the ball well. They've always been able to throw it with Stafford. Their defense still has Aaron Donald, so they're playing really good ball. So potentially we could play them. One thing I learned years ago is don't try to get back and sit and prognosticate who you might play and all that. We'll be prepared for anybody that comes. And but most importantly, we got to take care of business this week and against the Rams, and that should be fun.
And John, I'm glad that you actually brought up Puka Nacua because Sean McVay plans to play him this weekend with the opportunity to break rookie receiving yards in both receptions and receiving yards overall. Now, my question is, at this point of the season, when teams like the Rams and yourself have a playoff spot locked up, how big of a factor do records or even player incentives play into the factor in the decisions on who's playing and who's not playing?
I've got this unbelievable memory in my head, and man, people love Sam Weiss. He was my first coach in the NFL, and we had a receiver in Tampa named Courtney Hawkins, and now we were terrible. We were not a playoff team. We were, I think, 4-11, and I forget what year it was, but Courtney needed some catches for a fairly sizable bonus, and the team knew about it. Sam started the game. Like, bubble screens weren't even a thing then. I think we may have invented it in an effort to get Courtney Hawkins 6 catches. And I mean, the equity that Sam earned, and people love Sam anyhow, but with my teammates, it was incredible because he took care of Courtney and then went back to calling a game. So, those things do exist. We pull for people. We want people to do well. And, that's always interesting this time of year.
Talking to John Lynch, 49ers getting into this Rams game with champagne problems, man. They've clinched the 1 seed. They're trying to figure out who to play and who not to play. And then, of course, One of the best players in the history of the NFL is your left tackle, Trent Williams. Makes his 11th Pro Bowl. Congratulations. Joining Anthony Munoz, Willie Rofe, and John Ogden as the only tackles ever. They're all in Canton, by the way. Okay, so, obviously he's worth his weight in gold, so can you just flat out rule him out right now? And, is that ankle something to watch? I mean, when he didn't play, it hurt the team. When he plays, you win. What's your Trent Williams strategy going in?
Well, Trent's in good health right now. He's so fun watching him at Washington. I think, going against your former team is always, you have a little something extra. I just love watching the joy that guy plays with, the joy when Arizona pulled off that win and we're in the locker room watching. He's just really enjoying playing football, which is so cool for me to see. Because sometimes when guys been around, they don't relate with their teammates, and he's just like one of the guys, and he's a special player. I tell you guys often, I don't like to talk about Hall of Fame because that's not something you try to predict, but I mean, I do know that we should all sit back and appreciate this guy because he's going there. He's going to be in Canton. He's that type of player. But still to see him, the level of play at this stage of his career and the excitement that he plays with, that's a big deal. With somebody as talented as Trent, it's keeping your skills and staying in shape, but it's also keeping that passion for the game. He clearly has it. As to whether he'll play, I think we intend on playing Trent early in this game and seeing where that goes, and Trent's all for it. He's Trent's done tremendous. He's in really good health, and he understands and trusts in Kyle and our coaching staff that we're going to put him and the rest of his teammates in the best possible position.
Okay, well, that's surprising. And, hey, the guy wants to play some football, he'll play some football. To your point about his veteran status / passion for the game, kind of reminds me of like baseball clubhouses where they talk about, some old leader guy's going to tell a guy how to navigate a 162 game season or how to handle a pitcher or a road trip. Then when I saw him hugging Brock Purdy, I mean, we get these videos now from the locker room. We didn't used to get these, John. Now we get them. And I know you guys probably have mixed emotions about that, I'm sure. But when Brock Purdy passed Jeff Garcia for the record, I'm sure you saw it when you were standing right there. He hugged him, and he's like, "I'm proud of you, man." And a lot of people seized on that, saying, like, it's kind of an interesting relationship, right? The old gray beard and the young buck. And, did you observe that, or have you observed that in that little moment in time where he hugged him and said, "I'm proud of you, man"?
I wasn't aware of the video. I was in that locker room, and Brock's got a quality where people really relate with the guy and people really respect him. And that's from Trent to Debo to B.A., Kittle, everybody, Jake Brindle, everybody just, Fred Warner, everybody's got a great deal of respect for Brock and the way he's handled himself since he's come in here. The passion with which he competes, the humility. So I think everybody just really pulls for Brock, and that record kind of just snuck up on us. I don't think a lot of people are aware of it until Kyle announced it in the locker room. And so, with a storied franchise like this, I understand the game's changed, but you're talking Joe Montana, you're talking Steve Young, and then Jeff Garcia, who had the record. That's a big deal. And so I think Trent was just kind of, that was authentic, and that's the way people feel about Brock. He's earned that respect from people.
And now Brock's gone from breaking Jeff Garcia's passing record to becoming the first 49er quarterback to make the Pro Bowl since Jeff Garcia. And first of all, I got to say congratulations, John, for putting together a roster that has 9 Pro Bowlers on it and also 12 alternates. But I wanted to ask you about one of those alternates, Brandon Ayuk. And with him having a breakout career-type season, what were your thoughts on him not initially making the Pro Bowl roster?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm happy for all our guys that made the Pro Bowl. I don't want to sound like the old guy sitting back. It's not like it used to be. But the Pro Bowl is not what it used to be. We actually used to play a game, and we used to actually go play hard, especially when the money was on the line late, and you had to pay hotel bills over in Hawaii. So,
hotel bar bills.
I'll never forget one of the hardest hits I've ever. I think I had a lot of hard hits in the NFL. One of the hardest ones I ever put on, and it was on Eddie George, Eddie still, when I run into him, he looks at me like I'm nuts because what I did to him in the Pro Bowl. But I was literally sent out there by Steve Young and a group of veterans like the old hats saying, "Hey, I brought my entire family. They were in the spa all week. You need to go get the ball back. And I sure enough, I went up and hit Eddie George. The ball came out, and I had kind of earned the respect of everybody in that room because I helped them out. But so I say that only to say I don't know if these guys take it as seriously as we used to. I think it used to be, and it still is a big deal, these accolades. Mm-hmm. But Brandon Ayuk, whatever it is these days, I believe that he's earned it. What he's done, his yards per catch. I mean, we were at a point deep into the season, and someone told me, like, every catch but 2 of us have gone for a first down. He's number 1 in the league in yards per reception. But the thing I think takes him over the hump is the commitment he's made to run blocking and to do all the things he's doing in the pass game, the explosivity, 7 games over 100 yards, and then to couple that with the commitment he's made to being the best run blocking receiver in the league. And Kyle talks about that kind of dictates the tempo, the attitude of a team as much as anything, as much as Trent Williams coming up the ball. When your receivers buy into that, and it is contagious, we talk about that a lot. BA sold out, and man, this guy's a Pro Bowler in my mind. He's an All-Pro in my mind, and I'm so proud of him. And I felt sick for him that he didn't make it. I will say our fans were unbelievable. It wasn't for lack of trying. Our fans, the way they came out and supported our players was unbelievable. The faithful never cease to amaze me. But I did feel bad for BA, but I know that, like, through my own experience, sometimes that's just the way it goes. Like, you should have made it one year and then you make it the next year, and hopefully you keep going. And BA has that in him. I know that.
Yeah, he sent out an Instagram saying, I'm just, of the 9 Pro Bowlers, saying, I'm trying to be like you guys. And I mean, listen, maybe they got to be fueled up. Everything you said is on point about him. Last few minutes here, John, we definitely have to do a little bit of housekeeping, and that is 2 big injuries, Eric Armstead and Juwan Jennings. Let's start with Armstead. He's been gone a while now. Can he be back for the playoffs?
That's our hope. And the 1 seed, when you talk about what it means some extra time for a guy like Eric, who's been working through some foot and knee injuries and making a great deal of progress. But this just gives him a little extra time, and it's been killing Eric. He wants to be out there for his team, but this extra time just allows him more opportunity to heal up, and Eric's a big part of what we do. So he's working hard. We expect to have him for the playoffs. We hope to. I don't know about expect to, because you always have to hit these markers, and we'll turn up the intensity of his training as we get closer. And he's doing real well. Who else did you ask about?
Juwan Jennings.
Juwan. So Juwan's in the concussion protocol, and I think wisely so. We're instructed by the league not to really get into the details of that, because it is a protocol, and it really takes it out of our hands. So there's steps he has to hit. He hasn't hit those yet. Kyle mentioned that we thought progress was being made, but that, for the league for coming up, and they put a lot of time into coming up with a protocol that makes sure guys are ready when they return to play, and he's in that, and so he's a big part of what we do, but we're not going to put him out there, nor will the protocol allow for it until he's ready.
And then finally, just the big picture on Sunday, your quarterback. It was a huge deal when you guys got Sam Darnold in the offseason. A lot of people saw you guys as like, man, maybe Brock can't go. Remember, there was a thought of like Purdy can't go, Darnold's going to be the guy. Matt Mayoko came on our radio and famously said he's the most talented thrower of the football the Niners have ever had. We just had Greg Papa on talking about how dazzling he is. We saw him a little bit, obviously, in the Ravens game on Christmas night, and his future is uncertain. So what's the John Lynch view from the general manager's office about Sam Darnold on Sunday, Sam Darnold going into the playoffs, and then, John, what you guys want to do with him when the season's over?
Yeah, so I think, first of all, I go back to I was unbelievably impressed because Sam could have done a lot of things this offseason. I think he could have made more money elsewhere, but Sam wanted to be a part of what we had. He wanted to be a part of, kind of going into the lab with Kyle Shanahan and his offensive coaches, and knew that, that may mean backing Brock Purdy up. At the time, Brock was injured, but we felt really good. So we were clear, and hey, if Brock's healthy, he's our guy. but we need someone. You always need a backup. Look at what we went through last year, and I say that just to say that Sam really very much wanted to be a part of it. We got creative and worked some things out contractually. But what I've been more impressed with is, number one, his interest being here, but then once he's been here, what a teammate. He works. He's, you always hear this about first guy in. I can tell you with Sam Darnold, I'm an early morning workout guy, and we started, my group that, I work out with starts at 5, and Sam's not far behind us. He's one of the first guys in. He's one of the last guys. He's really committed to just making the most out of this year. He's earned everyone's respect, and my goodness, is he a talented thrower? Again, yesterday out at practice, I mean, he can do some things. You talk arm talent, it's a buzzword thrown around, but if you want to see what arm talent is, just watch Sam Darnold. He can do some special things with the ball. I think he's really taken to our offense. We're, as an organization, just thrilled with Sam, and I think everyone's excited that he's getting the opportunity to go play this week and see what he can go get done against the Rams.
Have a great time this weekend, and good luck in the playoffs.
Okay, thank you, guys.
There he was, 49ers general manager and Hall of Famer John Lynch. Everybody getting ready for Week 18 Niners and the Rams. You can call it a rivalry game, but it's going to be a bunch of faces you are not used to seeing in 49er red and in Rams blue and white. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, and John Lynn with you, streaming on twitch.tv/thesportsleader, YouTube, and, of course, on the KNBR app and KNBR.com. When we come on back, we'll start getting you more ready for this one. Kickoff 1:25 here as the Niners have locked up the 1 seed. The Rams still playing for their position here. We'll see what happens as they've sewn up their playoff spot as well. More to come here on the Sports Leader. Back here live from Levi Stadium, Week 18, about to get underway. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, and John Lunn with you. Let's get you, we're going to get started here with our countdown to kickoff momentarily after I tell you about Who's Hot. Who's Hot, sponsored by Valley Heating, Cooling, Electrical, and Solar, locally and family-owned for 61 years. Who's hot heading into this one? Well, this is why we're paying attention to the Rams as they enter Week 18, because a game today, depending on what happens around the rest of the NFC, could have the Niners playing the Rams in a couple of weeks following a victory in their wild card game, depending on where it is that they line up and how the first round plays out. Rams have been hot. They barely got by the Giants last week. Again, in my mind, the toughest victory for the Niners this year came Week 2 down in Los Angeles. They're a better team than they saw Week 2. They're a different team, and you won't see much of them today, but you could see them in a couple of weeks. That's Who's Hot. We'll get you the countdown to kickoff. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, and John Lunn. It's Week 18, wrapping up the regular season with Slingin' Sammy Darnold and Carson Wentz right here on The Sports Leader.
Mayuka's wide left. Debo goes in jet sweep motion. They jet pass it to him. He gets the edge. Touchdown! San Francisco!
Debo driving the bus around the corner.
There it was, Deebo Samuel into the end zone last week as the Niners hammered the Washington Commanders. Then they got some help. The Arizona Cardinals knock off the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Niners lock up the number 1 seed in the NFC playoff picture. We enter Week 18. Both of these teams today, the Rams and the Niners, playing not really for anything. The Rams do not control their own fate in terms of their positioning, though they have locked up a playoff spot. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champion, Dennis Brown and John Lem with you here live from Levi's Stadium. A 1:25 kickoff is coming your way right here on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader. Appreciate everybody who's checking in on the YouTube stream and chat right now. You can check it over on twitch.tv/the sports leader as well, and on the KNBR app. Why don't we get right in to this one as we get you ready for a 12-4 49er team who's the number 1 seed, could finish the year at 13-4, 12-5. Either way, they'll be the number 1 seed. Yesterday, we saw the Baltimore Ravens, the number 1 seed in the AFC, fall to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this is something that we'll talk about as we get through the show today, because the rest versus rust thing is our guy Drippy Shrimp 15 checks in, Dennis, and says the conversation about rest versus rust is so dull. It's true, because it's not something you can ever define by the time the Niners play. If they play well, we'll say, they needed that rest. That was good. If they play poorly, we might say, oh man, wasn't a good idea to sit everybody. It's not real. There's no real way to define it. We just don't know if it's a great thing. Personally, I think based on the age of the team and the health of the team, it is a good thing. It's also a good thing, I think, for a guy like Brock Purdy. So why don't we get into that QB comparison, sponsored by Friedman's Appliance, proudly serving all of Northern California with a wide selection of luxury appliances. Visit them in Pleasant Hill to see the Friedman's difference, and by Dolce Vita Tequila pure and simple. Dennis, this is a guy, Brock Purdy, who entered last year as the final pick of the draft, the third-string quarterback. They end up trading Nate Sudfeld, or moving on from Nate Sudfeld, to make Brock the number 3 guy. For a guy who sat back there and played basically scout team quarterback, and then when he steps in as the number 2, he's getting number 2 reps, did not get reps all offseason. My thought on Brock getting the rest, and we heard Steve Young, we played a cut from him earlier when he was on with Tom and I this week, saying it took him a half usually if he missed a game to get back up to speed, especially when you're the backup. I would imagine you're getting fewer reps. But for Brock, very few situations he has not seen, and we have seen him come off the bench with no reps, with very little practice time throughout the week, and perform. We saw him do it throughout an offseason and then perform at the start of the year. For him, this is not a concern for me. He's not a guy that I think has to see the field in order to have success and rhythm.
Yeah, and, in the backstory, we all know the backstory about Brock, the last player picked. Last season with the elbow, he's coming back. We didn't know he was going to be on the field. He comes back even better. He's broken all the records. He's had a historical season. He had a 3-game skid there where he was throwing a lot of interceptions. But then after the bye, he comes back and he's right back on track. And he finishes up the season well. Like I said, he's broke all the records, 49er records, which are, you're talking Joe Montana, you're talking Steve Young, Hall of Famers like that. So, he's a guy that you would say that, he could use direct. And he is the most important player on that offense. I mean, this offense has a lot of weapons, but he is the guy that makes the decisions, makes the good decisions, and gets the ball to his playmaker. So he is important. Like I said at the beginning of our show, I mean, it just seems odd that, a young player like that, you wouldn't want to keep his mind or keep him engaged in the game and let him play a couple snaps, let him prepare for a football game, let him play a couple snaps and then take him out. To take him out of I don't know how practice goes, but I don't take him out of practice. Darnold has to have all the number 1 snaps during the week because he's going to start. But I just don't understand how you take someone's mind out of football. But it seems like Brock, it's not a big deal for him.
Cal said they got to go through this like it's a situation where he says, we're going to treat this week as though Brock went down on the first play, but Brock took the number 1 snaps, I believe, this week. I think they went through the process they went through the process this week as though it was a normal game. And he said, I've told the guys, imagine Brock were to go down early in the game like he did last year, first snap of the game, and now Darnold's in. Yeah. We've got to manage this thing. So he said the only way you're seeing Brock, and this would be an emergency, is if for some reason there's a bunch of injuries to the quarterbacks today, and Brandon Allen and Sam Darnold. I don't know if we'll see Allen today. I imagine we will at some point later in the game. John?
So are you saying Darnold didn't get the number 1 snap?
That's not my understanding.
I think he did late in the week.
Maybe late in the week, but early when we talked to Kyle, he on Thursday, Kyle had said, we're treating this like Brock went down early in the game, which would mean Sam was the number 2 guy coming in. So, again, Sam Darnold going to start today against Carson Wentz, the backup quarterback for Matt Stafford and the Rams. John, what are you looking for today? I mean, these are 2 guys that are playing. It's a weird situation a little bit for how they navigate this, because 2 coaches who very much understand their players, and I would imagine are players' guys. I envision Kyle and Sean McVay as guys that are relatable to their players. They work for their guys. We saw that with Trey Lance, where Kyle said to him, "Hey, man, we want you here. I want to develop you here. But if you think there's a better situation for you, we don't want you to be somewhere that you're unhappy. We want you to go somewhere that you can succeed." And that's what happened. I imagine they want the same for these guys. I imagine they would be happy if Sam Darnold came out and played real well and was able to get himself some money next year. What are you looking at today?
Well, I think they're both in the same situation. Even though the 49ers have this thing wrapped up in the NFC and everything comes through Levi Stadium, I think that Kyle probably feels like he owes it to Sam Darnold to try to give him a little bit of time here to show people what he can do. And the same thing, Sean McVay with Carson Wentz. But the thing is that they're going to run the ball a ton. The clock is going to be running, and both teams really don't want guys to get hurt. That's the number one thing. And I certainly respect Dennis. He knows the hell of a lot more about the game than me. But where it has evolved to is I'm on team sit. Because to me, first of all, this is an awesome situation to be in, to be able to sit your players in this final game. But I also understand that the guys who don't play, whether it be through injuries already, guys like CMC are not going to play, or choice, Brock Purdy's not going to play. We'll see how the rest of these guys play amongst all these key players for the 49ers who went to the Pro Bowl and everything else. But I would rather have them rusty than hurt. And we saw TJ Watt yesterday. Now, that was a game that the Steelers needed to win. They needed to beat the Ravens. They need some help today to get into the playoffs. So TJ Watt had to play, but he's got an MCL sprain, and he's not going to play in their first playoff game. So,
per his brother, by the way, J.J. Watt, so it's unlikely. It's it's an interesting report.
Now, look, it's from Washington last week to playing then in the first playoff game, which is probably going to be January 20th. It's the weekend of the 20th and the 21st. That's 3 weeks for Brock Purdy not to play. But I got to believe that Kyle Shanahan and this staff knows how to get him prepared between then and the first playoff game. Will he be rusty a little bit? Sure. Again, let's go back to 2019 where they didn't have time off, but they did have the bye week off. They were rusty in that first half at Minnesota, and they didn't play great. And in the second half, they absolutely dominated him. They go on to the Super Bowl. So, look, it's not a perfect situation, but if you asked any single team in the NFL, would you rather have 3 weeks off? Or would you rather have to play, we're watching some of these games up here. New Orleans and Atlanta's on the screen right now on the Red Zone channel. New Orleans has got to win to get into the playoffs, but then Tampa has to lose and Atlanta has to win and have Tampa lose. Like, I'd much rather have that situation where it's like, look, I've got home field advantage than sitting home like Pittsburgh is going, I hope this team loses and this team loses, or Seattle's got to beat Arizona and they've got to hope the Packers lose. It's just like, would you rather be in that situation and be like, hey, we're going to play throughout?
Hope is not a strategy, my man.
Plus, look, this team's banged up. CMC's banged up. Juwan Jennings has a concussion. There's lots of guys on this team who need this time. So the 49ers earned this situation. Every coach in the league would love to be in the situation that Kyle Shanahan is in, which is, do I rest my players today? It's a pretty nice conundrum to be in.
Brock Purdy ends his season on a high note. Christian McCaffrey ends his season as the number one rusher in the NFL. By the way, last week he goes only 64 yards on the ground because of the calf strain. 4 catches for 27 yards on the season, 1,459 yards rushing. That's the most ever for a 49er running back as well, right? He set that record earlier in the year. Goes for 14 rushing touchdowns. Goes for 7 receiving touchdowns, so 21 combined TDs. He's probably the favorite to win Offensive Player of the Year. He and McCaffrey, both long shots to win the MVP, but incredible play throughout the season. You mentioned the Pro Bowlers. 9 Pro Bowlers selected for the 49ers, the most since 2013. Nick Bosa gets his 4th selection. Javon Hargrave is 2nd. Juszczyk's 8th. George Kittle's 5th, Brock's 1st, Christian McCaffrey's 3rd, Fred Warner's 3rd, Charvarius Ward's 1st, and Trent Williams 11th. They get 12 alternates, too. Talk about a snub. Brandon Ayuk, Eric Armstead, Aaron Banks, Jake Brendel, Oren Burks, Dre Greenlaw, Demo Lenore, Colton McKivitz, Tabor Pepper, Debo, Mitch Wishnowski. Tim says in all caps, put him in the Pro Bowl, you cowards. And then Chase Young. So there's your alternates for the Pro Bowl, and Tim notes the biggest snubs are Brandon Ayuk, 72 catches for 1,300 yards and 7 touchdowns. By the way, Amon-Ra St. Brown, a major snub. 112 receptions coming into this week with like 1,400 receiving yards. What are we doing?
Ayuk is had an awesome year, but if you look at the guys who made it, and Amon-Ra St. Brown didn't with 112 catches.
That's the one that, but at first I saw the same thing. I was pissed about Ayuk, and I was like, Amon-Ra.
But look at the 4 that, it's Mike Evans has 13 touchdowns. A.J. Brown's over 105 catches. CeeDee Lamb's got ridiculous numbers. But again, if you put Ayuk in Dallas and he was targeted as much as CeeDee Lamb,
he'd have those numbers too.
He'd have those. So, I think it's amazing that Ayuk in this offense with so many mouths to feed has done what he's done. But when everybody bitches and moans about who got snubbed, okay, you got to pull somebody off. Now, I understand Niners fans are like, pull them all off. He's number one.
Pull them off.
I get it, but there's 4 pretty damn good receivers, and Amon-Ra St. Brown has over 112 catches and is tops to Ayuk in every category. It's all the situation you find yourselves in. If he was in Detroit, if he was in Tampa, if he was in Dallas, they don't have the kind of weapons he has. So it's a detriment to him, but he's had a hell of a season. And guess what? You know what the ultimate is? Not Pro Bowls, not all pros, payday, and he's going to get paid.
Yeah. Last week we did not see a lot of Christian McCaffrey after the calf strain. They kept him out. He did go over 2,000 total scrimmage yards on the season. Pretty incredible. He did say when he came out, he thought, damn, I don't know if I got it. Then afterwards, he's like, well, I did. Pretty cool. Good deal when he found that out. So when we come on back, though, let's talk more about who we could see today. Elijah Mitchell had a really nice game, nice showing last week. We did not see much of him this year. It's incredible how he can be as hurt as he's been throughout this season, even like he was a couple of years ago when he was a rookie. Can miss a slew of games, come back in and be a bell cow. We should see a lot of him today. We'll talk more about that, and then we'll catch up with our guy Matt Mayoko, who is here on hand for the Niners and the Rams. It's Week 18. Carson Wentz, who, by the way, John gave us this note earlier, is making his first NFL appearance in a game in 371 days. He'll do so against the Niners' number 2, Sam Darnold. We'll talk more about that next on the Sports Leader.
Yeah, it's just doing what I'm coached. Our system is really good. We got really good players, and so for me, I don't have to be superhero and or Superman and go out there and say I need to get it done right here and throw in this tight window. I have to go throughout my process and what I'm coached, and we'll be successful. That's been the case. And the times where I've been too aggressive with things and stuff, we've gotten in trouble, turned the ball over, and then obviously those games we've come down to losing some of them. So that's something that I have to obviously always have in my mind. But at the same time, when I see something and I'm confident about it, I'm gonna let it rip. So I think that's sort of the fine line of it. But playing within the system and how I'm coached is always good enough here.
That, of course, is Brock Purdy. You will not see Brock Purdy today. Number 13 will not play. That's going to be Sam Darnold, 14. He gets a chance today against Carson Wentz. The two starters won't play. The Rams do not have a position locked up at 9 and 7, but they do have a playoff spot locked up. They're at least the 6. They could drop down to the 7, depending on what Green Bay does tonight at Chicago. Seattle can still get in the playoffs, all those kind of things. But just what Brock said there. So with him not playing and a number of players not playing or not playing much, Brock Purdy tops Jeff Garcia as the all-time leading passer in a single season as far as yards are concerned. Christian McCaffrey goes over 2,000 scrimmage yards. By the way, only the third player in NFL history to do it with two different teams, the other two being Marshall Faulk and Eric Dickerson. George Kittle goes over 1,000 yards. Brandon Ayuk well over 1,000 yards. You got Deebo Samuel going over 1,000 yards from scrimmage. That's never happened before as far as 4,000, 2,000, 1,000, or 1,000, 1,000 receivers and 1,000 scrimmage yards, which just goes to say what we've been talking about all season long is that they are an embarrassment of riches in terms of skill position players for the 49ers. And once we hit the playoffs, no matter who they play, that's going to be a handful. But because Brock came in there, how about that? I mean, still the story, Mr. Irrelevant comes in his second season, his first full season as a starter, and coming off the injury he comes off of, and I don't know, I'll just go ahead and say this might be controversial. The 49ers have had a pretty good amount of success at quarterback, and this guy is the all-time leading passer yardage-wise in a single season in their history. How about that story?
I mean, it still kind of blows my mind a little bit. Excuse me. And
have you come around on him yet, Dennis?
I think I have. I think I'm better. I think I'm better, right? I mean, really. I mean, look, you can't even. I mean, you had those 3 games where he threw a lot of interceptions. Yep. After that, I mean, we're talking now a full season. We're talking last season. It's just you watch him play, and he plays well. He plays well, and he does it consistently, and he does it. Would not. I mean, it's effort, but it just seems like he's very comfortable, and he gets it, and it makes John Lynch and that scouting department that look like geniuses. They find this guy at the end of the draft, they bring him in, and now he's your franchise guy. And you're talking. You just said, he lapses with Steve Young and Joe Montana,
and Jeff Garcia.
Jeff Garcia. So, 3 of probably the best quarterbacks that this franchise has seen. So it's amazing what he's done. And we talked about the weapons beginning of the season, during the season, but when you read off the yardage and their production, it just shows. And, we talk about managing football games. Brock Purdy has been able to manage the game to get the ball in these folks' hands to get these big numbers and the wins. So it's impressive. It's super impressive.
69.4% completion percentage, 4,280 is the number of yards, again, the most in 49er history, in franchise history, 31 touchdowns to 11 picks. And the crazy note to me is he threw 4 in one game. So he had 31 touchdowns and 7 picks in every other game of the season as a body of work. Again, you can't eliminate the one game. 31 to 11 is a damn good number. You're going 3 to 1 basically on your touchdowns to interceptions. But when you're turning it over that many times in just one of the games, it's an outlier. It's like when we look at how a run game performs against the 49ers defense and you go, they went for this guy might have gone. For example, Lamar Jackson on Christmas went for what, 40-something rushing yards, but it was one big 30-something yard run.
31-yarder.
In the other carries, he was going like under 3 yards a carry. So, you got to look at the body of work of it. The rate stats are there. The total stats are there. Brock Purdy's been fantastic. In terms of the season, what this season means in context, I asked Steve Young about that this week. I said, would you put this on par with a season that you and Joe Montana had, that you and Joe, are those, because you have to. And Jeff Garcia's season where he set that record, he says, that's up there too. The game evolves, sure, but he goes, football's hard, man. It's really, really, really hard. And it's unheard of what we're seeing from Brock Purdy. There is no comp. I mean, we keep saying guys like Kurt Warner or Who else is out there as a guy who was a late draft? I mean, Dak Prescott was a fourth rounder, right? This guy was a seventh round draft pick. You don't have success from many players in general that do this, but to find a quarterback to do this is one of the most unique stories we've ever seen. And for this to happen this quickly, like Geno Smith to sit on the bench and learn to be a pro last year, become the comeback player of the year, that was a cool story and not quite as surprising. It fits into the mold of what a developed player could be. For Brock Purdy to do it in the season that he steps in as a starter and then to come back off the injury, it's pretty incredible. The makeup of this guy is something we have not seen in this organization in a long time.
Now, what's left though? Super Bowl.
That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at all his accomplishments. What's left? And that's to win a Super Bowl. 5
interception game, maybe. Well, no, I'm kidding. Come on.
That would break some records. But I mean, when you talk about his accomplishments, that's the only thing that's left.
Yeah. I mean, look. Papa was talking all week long about let's enjoy this thing, and that's great. But Steve said this all the time, and this isn't a fact about this organization. Jed York said it when he didn't extend Jim Harbaugh. This organization is about winning Super Bowls, and nothing is going to happen today. But in regards to that, that's how the team is remembered. If you go back, and we talked to Dante Whitner on all the shows about this, we talked to all the guys from that era. That was an amazing era of football, the Jim Harbaugh era, and Patrick Willis and Alden Smith and Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick and all these different guys that were on those teams. But if you talk to any of those individual players, they cannot be talked about on a certain level like your teams were, Dennis, because they didn't win it. And that's where when you talk to these guys, in the locker room or whatever the case may be, or Kyle Shanahan, I know it's burning to do this because his dad did and they know the feeling. They have an opportunity as they go into the playoffs here as the top seed and everything goes through Santa Clara to win this thing. We just talked about all the talent they have offensively. You can go on every single level on defense, too. Guys like Hargrave and Bosa are Pro Bowlers, and Warner is a Pro Bowler, and Greenlaw is a snub. And then you go to Ward. This is the best season he's had. If he's not the best corner in the league, there's one thing to be a Pro Bowler. It's the thing all-pro is the whole thing. I think that Charvarius Ward is a all-pro type of a corner. So you have a Pro Bowl or all-pro at every level of the defense. You have an amazing amount of offensive skill position players, and you have a quarterback that is in sync with the head coach. Now, look, injuries happen. The ball is oblong. I understand all those kind of things, but it will be a massive disappointment if this thing doesn't end in Vegas with Brock, and this would be the ultimate. I know that Kurt Warner held that thing, but Mr. Irrelevant holding the Super Bowl trophy would be the thing that everybody in this building is aiming for.
It's pretty incredible what he's been able to do. Again, sets a single-season record for passing yards. And the guys who caught those passes, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and Brandon Ayuk. Who's playing today? What's the receiving corps look like for the 49ers today? We can talk about that with Matt Mayoko, our insider from NBC Sports Bay Area. He's going to join us here from Levi Stadium when we come on back. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ Dennis Brown, John Lund with you. The Niners enter today at 12-4. The Rams come in at 9-7. Both teams have already stamped their ticket to the NFC playoffs. So the Niners have a bye. And as many people are checking in here on the YouTube chat, you can also stream us on twitch.tv/thesportsleader. Our guy Ray Barrios says, yeah, man, I'll take the rust over the injury 8 days a week. He says they could start slow, but I'd rather them start slow than not have their weapons available. I'm with you, Ray. Keep checking in here on YouTube, Twitch, the KNBR app. When we come on back, we'll check in with Matt Mayoko, 49ers insider, NBC Sports Bay Area. Who's playing today? Which faces are we going to see? What's the receiving corps look like? How many passes will be thrown their way next? Only here on the Sports Leader.
What will you do this week? That's kind of the question of the moment. I think it's one of the great privileges.
What would you do, JB?
I spent the whole flight home from New Jersey thinking about it. I really did.
Hey, as did I.
You didn't get this far not to have Matthew Stafford in the wild card round, for instance, right? But on the other hand, I think 6/7 matters. I don't know if you care about the opponent you play. I think Puka Nacua setting an NFL record for receiving matters. How are you juggling all of those dynamics?
Yeah, and all of those things are what you work through. And I think it is that balance of knowing that, yes, there's a difference between 6 and 7, between 9 and 10. I still think, we're going to do everything we can to try to go win this football game, play really good football. How exactly that affects the specifics are things that we're working through, because if you said, what is the most important thing? The most important thing is to make sure that we're ready to go for that wild card game.
As the voice of Rams head coach Sean McVay, undoubtedly the voice of Sean McVay, Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ Dennis Brown, and John Lund with you from Levi Stadium as we're getting ready for Week 18. Niners and the Rams, both teams have their tickets stamped to the playoffs, and the Rams can find their seating out by the end of today. Joining us here, as he does every week, Matt Mayoko. He's in the broadcast booth here at Levi Stadium, 49er insider from NBC Sports Bay Area. What's up, Matt? How are you, man?
I am doing great. I'm feeling kind of like I feel hours before the final preseason game. It's like, come on, let's get on with the games that matter, folks. Come on, let's get through this game. Let's cut our losses. Let's play a running clock, and let's get this thing going.
I'm with you, and it's fun because at the end of the year, a lot of times you're reflective at the end of the regular season about what's happened and what could be coming next. We got some time to think about that, but nobody's really looking back. I mean, we've kind of been through so much in depth of the Brock Purdy MVP candidacy and Christian McCaffrey's 2,000-yard season, what Brock's season means in perspective is setting the 49er passing record, but everybody, and John and I were just talking about it, and Dennis too, is that the Pro Bowl stuff doesn't much matter. It's about one thing and one thing only now. It's getting to the Super Bowl and ending it with Brock Purdy holding the trophy.
Yeah, one game at a time, though, Copes.
Yeah, well, this one first, is that what you mean? You mean
no,
this one first?
I mean, the first game being probably January 20th.
Sure.
I guess I don't know exactly what the schedule would be, like who the NFL would put out there on the Monday night for the first game. Be the final game of Wild Card Weekend.
Sure.
The only way the 49ers would not play on the Saturday, the 20th, is if they end up facing that team, the winner of that the Monday night game. Then the 49ers' first playoff game would be on the Sunday. But that's kind of what the focus is. I think we already know who their 7 inactive players are going to be. How much, however, will Trent Williams play, and Bosa and Kittle and Warner and the cornerbacks, and so that's how Kyle Shanahan has to massage this thing today. But I mean, I kind of joked there at the beginning. I do think it's going to be very much a final preseason game type of mentality that both coaches will use. As Sean McVay stated, the most important thing is to get out ready to go for the Rams for next weekend, for the 49ers 2 weekends down the road. So I do think it's going to be very conservative game plans for both teams, very little blitzing, and a lot of running. In lieu of a running clock, they will want to run the ball, both teams, and limit the number of plays that both teams have. I think probably the ideal number, I mean, both teams would probably love to run about 55 or 60 plays in this game. And then, whoever wins, that's kind of a footnote. And then you move on to the playoffs, because we know both of these teams will be in the playoffs, and both of these teams think that they can make some noise in the playoffs.
I want to ask you about the usage of some of these guys today, because you mentioned the inactives, and obviously you can't sit everybody. And some of the position groups are going to look a little funny, and some of them will still have normal starters and faces and names that we're used to. The two that intrigued me the most, the run game you just talked about. We saw a lot of Elijah Mitchell last week. Is it him or is it J.P. Mason? And what does a wide receiver group look like today?
For the running backs, I don't think they're going to use Mitchell much. So it's going to be J.P. Mason and Jeremy McNichols. They brought up McNichols from the practice squad yesterday, and so you don't bring him up unless you expect him to run a lot. So my guess is maybe Mitchell for a cup of coffee and then a little bit more of Mason, and then a lot of McNichols to kind of finish off this game. And then with the wide receiver group, they did not bring up a wide receiver from the practice squad. However, they did activate Ray McLeod from IR, so he's ready to go. But Juwan Jennings is out for this game, the concussion. I just saw him a few minutes ago, so he's here. I think the expectation after a couple days of limited practice is that he'll be ready to go, no questions asked for the playoffs. I don't think you're going to see much of Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, probably a little bit, but again, not much. So a lot of Ronnie Bell, a lot of Chris Conley, and like I said, probably a little bit of Ray McLeod as well.
And Matthew, as you talk about the guys, a lot of guys are going to be sitting. So, who benefits from this game? What are the players that you're looking at that need to kind of show out? I think of a Javon Kinlaw. I mean, he's a guy that has to kind of show. He's had up and down season, but some guys can benefit from a game like this. Which ones do you see?
Well, I mean, I did do my 5 players to watch on Friday, and Dennis, I don't know if you should be scared or I should be scared, but Javon Kinlaw was my number one guy. So I don't know what that says about us, that we're both thinking along those lines. I also listed Sebastian Joseph Day because I really think that I did see Armstead earlier today, and he's working out. Again, I think the expectation, or at least the hope, is that he'll be ready to go for the postseason. But I think what the 49ers need to figure out is, do they want to stick with Kinlaw? Does he give them what they need, what they want as an interior run defender on those base downs? Or do they open the door for Sebastian Joseph Day? And I think he'll get a lot of playing time today. Do they open the door for him to show what he can do on those base downs? And then when the games matter, who do they feel more comfortable with? I mean, the 49ers run defense has not been good since Eric Armstead left the lineup. They went from opponents averaging about 3.4 yards per carry when Armstead was in there to 5.2 yards per carry when he hasn't been in there. And so they need to kind of shore that up to at least have their pecking order for the playoffs of, it's going to be Javon Hargrave in there. He's another guy they probably won't want to play a whole lot today. But when Hargrave is in there, and if Armstead needs a break or he's just not ready to go, who do they want in there? Is it going to be the guy they just picked up, a veteran guy who's played some really good football? Stops in L.A. with the Rams and the Chargers? Or do they stick with Kinlaw and hope that he just kind of lowers that base and doesn't get rooted out there on double team blocks?
Matt Mayoko joining us. I thought he wouldn't show up. I thought Matt Mayoko would take the week off too and maybe have a backup in, but he's not going to go Sam Darnold.
You don't know for sure if I'm here or if I'm just doing this remotely.
I don't see you. I probably will.
There's only so many we can go reenact.
Yeah,
I'm here.
Yeah, that's true. I see you in preseason.
I don't have enough pelts on the wall to just mail this one in.
Yeah, that's true.
It's still a full game.
That's true.
They'll roll the dice whether I get injured and ready for the postseason or not.
Hey, let's take a look back at this whole thing, because once we hit the playoffs, it's all going to be about the playoffs. Just the remarkable season they've had to this point to get home field advantage again. But this offense with Brock Purdy coming off the injury, and I know that we liked Brock, but he's even taken another step, even though he didn't have an offseason. He breaks the yardage record and over 2K for Christian McCaffrey, and Ayuk takes another step forward. And I know maybe it wasn't Debo's best season, but he's over 1,000 scrimmage yards. And I mean, just the kind of season that these guys had, specifically offensively, led by Brock, who's been a story the whole time. So I know in the playoffs we won't get to this. If they win the Super Bowl, it's going to be about that. If they lose the Super Bowl, it's going to be about that. So just one last look maybe at the regular season with a lot of these guys sitting out, but especially offensively, these guys have had a hell of a year.
They have. And, a year ago, well, less than a year ago, let's say 11 months ago, when we left Philadelphia, there were some questions. Who's going to be the 49ers starting quarterback to open the year? And it wasn't anything about the performance of Brock Purdy and him earning it or not earning it. It was just, is the guy going to be healthy? I mean, I think we all knew when we left that stadium that he was probably going to require Tommy John surgery. And at that point, we started learning more about the procedure and the process and what it means. And, we have always associated that injury with pitchers, and we know how long it takes for a pitcher to come back, but what about for a quarterback? And so there were just so many unanswered questions. And then And the first day of free agency, 49ers go out and sign Sam Darnold. So then it becomes, well, that's definitely a hedging of the bet for not only Brock Purdy, but also what does that mean for Trey Lance? And as time went on, the picture became clearer. And then, the first day of training camp, ahead of everybody's expectations, Brock Purdy's ready to go. And I remember the first day that he was out there, he ripped like 3 40-yard passes down the right sideline. And I don't know if any of them hit, but it's just like, oh, I guess he's healthy. Like there's no pitch count. There's no, hey, you're only working check downs or anything like that. And so it's just been a remarkable changing of everybody's minds or opinions or expectations from, is this guy even going to be ready when the season begins? And how many games will he miss? To, okay, he's going to be ready. And then, the daily, oh my gosh, he threw an interception in practice. Oh, he threw 2 interceptions.
Remember that?
Oh, that was incredible. And like I remember people on the sideline, like other reporters, in Vegas, in Henderson, when the 49ers were practicing, I was like, oh my God, he's horrible. I can't believe what the 49ers are doing here. And nobody in the know like wavered or anything. And then do you also remember heading into week 1? Oh my gosh, Kenny Pickett and those wide receivers for the Steelers, they've been unstoppable in the preseason. And the very first drive, the 49ers, didn't they go down and score? And Brock Purdy, throws a touchdown pass to Brandon Ayuk. And it was just like, oh, okay. I guess he's okay, and he's been okay other than one little blip on the radar. I guess that was the last time we were here at the stadium on Christmas night. It's been a remarkable season, and I mean, this Brock Purdy guy is something else, and it's been a heck of a lot of fun to see him from the moment he walked into this building to where he is now.
A few more minutes here with Matt Mayoko, our insider from NBC Sports Bay Area. Niners and the Rams kick off at 1:25 here from Levi Stadium, wrapping up the 2023 regular season. How much of Trent Williams do you think we see today?
I mean, half a quarter. Yeah, I mean, I just don't see. I mean, They can activate. They can have 8 offensive linemen active for this game, and they will. So I would think that Jalen Moore is going to see a lot of action at left tackle. Their backups. Their backups are Jalen Moore, and then Feliciano and Burford have kind of been rotating there at right guard. But there will be this will be the Ben Barch show. This will be the Matt Pryor show. The only issue is once you take a guy like I would think that once Trent Williams leaves the game, basically under no circumstances is he going back in the game, and that goes for Warner and the cornerbacks and everything else. So. I think they would, let's just say, if Trent Williams starts and plays, let's say 2 or 3 series, and then they get him out and Jalen Moore comes in, if there is any reason why they need somebody else to play left tackle, they probably, move Colton McKivitz to that side and have Charlie Werner as another tackle. Like, I just don't see them. That's the kind of juggling act that they have. Like, once you take one of those veteran guys out and they cool down, you want to avoid at all costs putting them back into the game cold, because of injuries or whatnot. So that's why, they have to massage this thing a little bit. But yeah, I think Trent Williams would be probably at the absolute top of the list of veteran guys who get in and then get out as quickly as possible.
In regards to other guys, like, Bosa plays a little bit, he's out, but there's a bunch of other guys who are just flat out hurt. I mean, with Christian McCaffrey and all those kind of things, but just in general, because I love the problem that they have. Darn, they have to sit these guys this, for basically from the Washington game for 3 weeks. But what will Kyle do? What will the staff do in this period of time to keep everybody as sharp as they possibly can?
Well, I think it was this last week. I think some of the veteran guys know that they're not going to play the whole game, but it was really stressed to them of pretend like you're playing the whole game. For Fred Warner, he's like, I'm preparing as if he's anticipating they might have 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, and then have the weekend off. And, but at that point, they'll know when they come back to work the following week who they're preparing for. But I would imagine they'll be working on some stuff that's kind of just, their base stuff that they'll run against any of the possible opponents. And have you done the math here? Is it 3? Let me think. I think it's 3 possible opponents. 1, 2. No, there'd be 4. So they could either play the 7th seed, the 6th seed, or the 4th or 5th seed. So there's 4 possible opponents. So that doesn't exactly narrow it down. But my guess is they'll try to just kind of do a cursory look at the 4 teams they could possibly play and say, okay, these are the kinds of plays. These are the dozen plays or concepts that we can run against any of those opponents and really hone in on that.
You want to give me? I'll give you a little teaser because you do this great job of taking pictures of players as they are arriving.
Yeah.
I went up to the seating chart and looked at the scouts who are at this game.
Nice work.
And it's exactly what you just said. They have scouts from Tampa and Philly and Dallas and Minnesota. And so any possible...
Dallas would be... Well, no, Dallas sure would be...
Well, if they lose today at Arizona, they could drop if Philly wins. So, that's unlikely. But still, all those teams that you just mentioned all have scouts here to look at the 49ers. There's no scouts from... the Titans here today. It's just potential teams who could play the 49ers. And so I was looking at just who they were. I didn't. Oh, outside of, I will say this, Alex Smith, but not the quarterback, the former tight end of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, is now a scout for the Buccaneers. He's one of them. So any team that could potentially play them is here as a scout to scout them.
Yeah, so I'm sure Kyle Shanahan knows that. I'm sure someone has, I'm sure John Lynch or somebody has said, oh, yeah, all these teams are there. And I don't say this tongue-in-cheek. I mean it. I think Kyle Shanahan's goal in this game is to give those guys absolutely nothing that can be useful for any of those teams 2 weeks away.
Yeah, that was, my point in saying that. And you said it in a much more succinct fashion. But here's a list. Tampa, Dallas, Green Bay, Detroit, New Orleans, Philadelphia, Seattle, and Minnesota all have scouts here today. And like you said, run. Sorry, Sam. I know you want this to be like your thing to be like, hey, I can play in the league. But it's like, it's just they're going to run it. Both teams are going to keep it vanilla. That's the way it goes.
And I also heard Sean McVay say, our goal is to win this game. But he kind of said, like, basically, our goal is to win this game under the constraints of us not putting our best foot forward. And I kind of feel that that's the same way with the 49ers. I'm sure both teams would like to win this game. But not at going all out to win it. However, for Sam Darnold, apparently, according to John Lynch, he passed up more money to be backup player elsewhere in order to come to the 49ers. And if the 49ers win, and we can assume that Sam Darnold will play at least 25% of the snaps, if that happens, if the 49ers win this game, Sam Darnold puts $300,000 of incentive money into his pocketbook.
How about that? Good deal.
It's not a bad day at work.
People still say pocketbook. I don't know why I said pocketbook.
That's a Matthew
day.
Nobody has a pocketbook.
Right there. So. Well, there you go. Something to watch for today. Sam Darnold.
Is he going to write a check?
Is somebody writing a check today for Sam Darnold?
Jed will be out there at midfield.
You ever been behind somebody at a grocery store that still pulls out a checkbook?
Oh, dude, come on, man.
That's my mom.
Your mom's still pulling out checkbooks?
And I just stand behind her like,
that was your mom in front of me at Safeway?
It's unbelievable. And plus, you know what she does too? It's at the bottom of her purse. And when the total is $122.29.
She's getting that change first.
There she gets her check. It's like, really? Like there's a card machine right there.
Is she fishing it out like next to the gum that she puts back into the wrapper?
Yeah, and it's a giant purse too, and you're just like, I'll meet you in the car.
She balances it right there too when she's done. She's like, let me finish this real quick.
I did. I drove for holiday.
And what did she say? Johnny, just wait, Johnny.
I just went, I'll meet you in the car because I look at the rest of the line. It's Target. There's 5,000 people in line, and they're just looking at me like, is she writing a check?
The takeaway here is I didn't know John still lived with his mom.
Yeah, right.
It was over the holiday.
Yeah, right, John.
Okay.
John shops with his mom at Target still too. Is that where you got that shirt?
Mom, can I get Fruit Loops?
Some underwear.
No, you cannot have sugary
cereals. You can have the Target brand Fruit Loops, John. That's what you can have. All right, Matt Mayoko, our insider from NBC Sports Bay Area. We'll see you upstairs in a bit, man.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
All right. A lot of good insight there from Matt on who's going to play today in terms of the wide receiver group, in terms of who's been activated for the backfield. We can talk more about the offensive line. And, John, a great point there. A lot of scouts here today. Tampa,
Dallas, Minnesota, Philly, Green Bay, Detroit, and Seattle all have scouts here because they all could end up playing the 49ers in a couple of weeks based on what plays out today. We'll get you some scores from around the league. We'll talk more about this one and recap some of what Matt had to say today. Ray McLeod has been activated. Juwan Jennings out. Jalen Moore probably going to see a lot at left tackle today. We'll talk more about it next, right here on the Sports Leader.
Yeah, I mean, the season is a grind. I mean, it was a grind before they even added an extra game, so I think you have the extra game. At the end of the day, is it a huge deal in the grand scheme of things? I don't think so, but it is really important to have a week of rest, for having that one seed, regardless if it's, 17 games or 16 games. I think having a week where you get to rest is big. And since they changed the rules were not the 1 and 2 seed buys, but only the 1 seed. That shows the importance of getting that top spot.
That is one Fred Warner, who won't play much today, may start, may not play much. Got the finale today between the Rams and the 49ers. Plus, we could see the Rams in a couple of weeks. The Lions winning right now. We'll keep you up to date on everything that's going on as far as the playoff picture, but the Lions could win today. If Dallas wins today, which they should at home against Washington, who we saw last week, and they're not much at this point of the season, Dallas gets the number 2 seed. So that would mean the Lions are the 3 seed. The Rams could be the 6 seed. They can knock off in the Stafford v. Goff Bowl, and then they could be back here in a couple of weeks. Actually, Statistically, that is the most likely scenario in the divisional round for the 49ers is the Rams. So in addition to not wanting to get anybody hurt, which Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan have spoken about, they also don't want to show each other anything because, remember, they haven't seen each other since week 2. So let's build the game plan. That's sponsored by good friends at Golden State. When you succeed, we succeed. Visit us today at goldenstatelumber.com and by River Islands.
It was for me.
Come home to River Islands in Lathrop and discover the San Joaquin. I didn't even need to pause there. He knew. Danny knew. Discover the San Joaquin River lifestyle with its lakes, parks, and schools. Start your tour today at riverislands.com.
It was for me.
Hey, Marty.
Hey, Marty.
All right, so, okay, let's take this off the table for a minute. Building the game plan is stay healthy. I get that. But what else would you like to see, Dennis, today in the finale versus the Rams? Go ahead.
I mean, what I would like to see is everyone to play, but that's not going to happen.
Old school.
I want to see a competitive football game, but staying healthy is number one. And we talk about staying healthy. Some of these guys are.
Are you angry? Are they soft because they're not playing today?
I guess I'm jealous. I'm a little jealous. I think,
because not only that, people don't realize. You played in 6 preseason games in the snow, no shoes, walking uphill.
Dennis might have mixed in a Hall of Fame game like a 7th one just for kicks. He might have played 7 preseasons.
I thought it was like 10, actually.
But you guys played.
And he paid them. He paid them to play.
Yeah. So, I think, when you talk about some of these backups, it's a good opportunity to get some reps. And we talk about injuries. Some of these guys who are going to be on the field today, they're going to be important in the playoffs. So, you have to go out, you have to, continue to build your resume, but, to perform at a level where when it comes to your opportunity in the playoffs to help the team, you can be in there. So I'm looking forward to some of these guys, and me and Matthew talked about it, Javon Kinlaw, on that defensive line, have a good game and get your mindset ready because you're going to be part of this playoff run. And it's going to be super important if you're going to win a championship to have that second tier of guys to be able to come together and play well.
Yeah, I guess
it's hard to evaluate.
It's hard to evaluate a game because it's like we don't know who's playing. Matt Mayoko just told us, like, for example, I asked him, like, we don't know everybody can't be inactive today. So I asked, who's the receiving core? What's that look like? We really only see 3 of them, right? Juwan Jennings, Ayuk, and Debo. Jennings has been out with a concussion. He's going to remain out. Matt said he's here today and said he's likely to be ready for the playoffs. But Ray McLeod activated. Said we could see some of him. He'll be back to kick return for the postseason. That's a good deal. Going to be a lot of Chris Conley and Ronnie Bell, but how much is a lot? How much are they throwing? He said, I'd expect them to run like 60 times each is what I think.
But I think you have to sit down with all these guys and just say, look, you haven't contributed a ton to the season. This is how you can contribute. I'm sorry, player X, any of those receivers,
you've got to
any
take
of these
one.
running backs.
Yeah.
A lot of this defensive line, like even if Bosa or Hargrave or any of these guys play, it's not going to be very much. So, hey, Randy Gregory and Kevin Givens and Javon Kinlaw and, Cleve Farrell or, any of these guys that are backing up. I mean, Farrell starts, but you got to play. Oren Burks, I know you've been banged up. You got to play. I don't want to play much of Fred Warner. I don't want to play Dre Greenlaw because, again, my fear is not the catastrophic.
It's the tweak, it's the bang, it's the bruise. Right. Trent Williams missed time this year with a groin strain that kept him out for a couple of games, and it was detrimental. Debo, same thing. Had an injury.
It was against Cleveland. So again, Trent Williams, high ankle sprain. Debo Samuel, first play of the game. I mean, they're not catastrophic injuries, but we're kind of on the verge here. It's 2 weeks from the time that they're going to be playing. So we're sitting here today. They're playing 2 weeks from today, from yesterday. So we're about 13 days away from that game. So if there's a tweak, if there's a high ankle sprain today, that person's probably not playing. If there's a concussion, that's going to still be questionable. Like we're within that period to where if you do a hamstring, a groin, any of these kind of weird things, then all of a sudden it's like, what are we going to be talking about on our shows? Damn, why did Debo play? He strained a groin. Yeah. Now we're going to have to worry about it.
Exactly. I mean, and that's the fear is that you're going to tweak something here. So he says Debo and Ayuk do have to dress today, right? They're going to be there. He says I don't expect to see them much at all, but
I'd hide their helmets.
They get out of here healthy.
They can't go in.
Get out of here healthy is a factor for everybody because to your point, and Kyle said this. Look, Brock, you can only go inactive with so many players. Brock is in the game. It's an emergency situation, right? Where you're like, dude, we're out of QBs, and we
need like the Philly game. You can
come in and hand it off for the entirety of the game. That's the only thing you'd be out there to do. So it's key for some of these other guys, yeah, because there's some hinge players here that are guys that if somebody else were to get banged up or tweaked or hurt, you'd need this guy there to cover a little bit when you get to the playoffs. So while we have not seen a lot of Conley, a lot of Ronnie Bell, Some of the other guys who will have to play, Ray McLeod, make sure he's okay. You'd like him to see the field maybe a little bit, but get him out of there quickly. He says Trent Williams, maybe half a quarter he's out there to play just to make sure he's heated up. But you got to run some of these guys. And to your point, that's it. Some of these players are going to have to take one for the team.
You're angry.
Dennis is pissed.
Because you would never have that conversation.
I'm just thinking, there was a time where, injuries are injuries. If you were hurt, you were hurt. Injuries are injuries, and everyone's beat up at this time. I mean, it's, again, we can go back and forth. I mean, it's a good.
In '94, not everybody played, and not everybody played the whole game.
Right. I mean, but we were in the game. I mean, we didn't have the mindset that we weren't going to play in a football game. I don't think anybody went into any game and said, we're not playing in this football game. I think we always had the mindset that we're going to get some snaps at least. So, again, I played in the 90s. I mean, it doesn't seem that long ago, but in football world, that's a long time ago. And players are just different now, so you handle them a different way.
By the way, we'll ask Ricky Waters about this. He's the honorary captain today. And I got to be honest with you, all the honorary captains have been great this year. We've had a slew of great guys. I'm more excited to talk to Ricky than anybody else because I don't know that, Dennis, if we had Ricky on a number of years ago that day, but from Fourth Board, but he was part of the show off the air, and he was a show in and of himself. And I just can't wait to talk to him. He's a lot of fun.
Ricky is fantastic because he is, first of all, he's full of energy. And, he's one of the great running backs that came through here, but he's a fun dude. He's a fun dude to be around.
Ricky Waters will join us here in studio as our honorary captain today. Week 18, Niners and the Rams coming your way. A 1:25 kickoff. We've heard from the general manager, John Lynch. Let's hear from the head coach, Kyle Shanahan. He joins myself and Tom Tolbert every week of the season on Thursday afternoons on KNBR 104.5 and 680. And should be talking to him throughout the postseason as well. Should be a lot of fun as the Niners will have the bye next week, and then we'll get ready for the divisional round opponent. And it could be today's LA Rams, though a much different looking team. We'll talk to Kyle Shanahan next over here on the Sports Leader.
Purdy now chased out of the pocket, now going back the other way, a 360 spin, trying to send, throws for the end zone. Ayuk is open. Touchdown! San Francisco. Ayuk is on fire
on the playground. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champion, Dennis Brown, John Lynn with you here from Levi's Stadium. Niners and the Rams coming your way for a Week 18 matchup that it's not going to decide anything in the NFC playoff picture, though the Rams can solidify a little bit of their positioning with a win today behind Carson Wentz, who makes his first start in 371 days, first NFL action in 371 days. He's going to be faced by Sam Darnold, and it's going to be a lot of backups in there for the Niners. A lot of Chris Conley, Ronnie Bell, J.P. Mason should get a little bit in the backfield. Not as much of Elijah Mitchell is what Matt Mayoko is saying. Juwan Jennings is out. Jeremy McNichols has been elevated, and he's going to take a bunch of those carries today. Probably going to see a lot of work. The head coach of the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, joins myself and Tom Tolbert every week of the 49er season, and he joined us on Thursday this week. We opened up the conversation with Tom asking Kyle if it was an easy decision to rest some of his players this week once they had the 1 seed all sewn up.
Kyle, what's going on, man?
Not much, guys. How's it going?
Pretty good.
Good. Congrats on getting the 1 seed.
Thank you.
That has to feel good, getting that bye. Now, was it a pretty easy decision for you? I guess I haven't even asked you yet how you're going to handle Sunday, but was that, before you let us know or not let us know what your plans are on Sunday, was it an easy decision for you, or was it something you had to wrestle with at all?
I thought it was an easy decision because Sunday, I mean, I've been fully counting on for a while, having to go into this last week and it coming down to, the 1 seed, the 2 seed, whatever it would be. Yeah. So I didn't think it would end like that. And so I've been so prepared for it. And once it did, I got on that plane. I'm like, oh, this is awesome, guys. We can relax a little bit. And we haven't been at this for a while. And then I woke up Monday morning and I had to send everyone a FaceTime saying, guys, I actually now have thought about this and there's no way in hell I can rest everybody. So you guys better come in with your mind right on Wednesday and not think that whatever we were feeling on that plane ride home is the same now. Because when the reality hits you and you look into it, and I mean, first of all, you got to find out how many of your own players can't play, and we have at least 6. So there's 6 guys that are hurt, and so after that, there's only one other guy we can't dress because you're allowed 7, and then you can get 2 practice squad guys up. So I mean, if I could sit a bunch of our guys that I want to, I don't want anyone to get hurt, but if I could sit the guys that in order that you absolutely can't get hurt, that'd be great if that meant we could get another player up to go play that. But you can't. You only can get the 2 practice squad guys up. So once you realize that and you start thinking of all the guys you want to sit, and then you look at what that means to the guy behind them, and it's like, man, you can't have just Kinlaw and Kevin playing 70 snaps at D tackle throughout a whole game. They won't be ready in 2 weeks. And now that'll get the guy that we're resting, he'll have to do all this and he'll be hurt in the next game. And so you look at the same at receiver to running back to corners to safety to linebackers, and it's a lot harder than you think. So, but we did make the decision right away. We're going to get Brock out of there. We're going to sit him. It'll be a good opportunity for Sam to come out there, play with our guys, and I gotta feel the game out. I gotta make sure I don't overload anybody too much. Obviously, I would love to get the guys out as fast as possible, but it's going to take a little bit of time, and hopefully we can come out there. Our guys definitely got the right mindset. Our guys are ready to go. They're expecting to play, and they are going to play, but I kind of just got to feel out how the game goes and make sure to get them out there as safe as I can, but we also got to make sure that we play this game.
What if, I don't know what the league would do, but what if you and Sean just decided to kneel on the ball, like take turns kneeling on it the whole game?
Well, you might find out Sunday. No, I'm just joking. I don't know what they do.
1 yard gained in the entire game.
I'll tell you what does make it a little bit easier is knowing they're not in the same situation, but it's similar. Just knowing that theirs can change a little bit. Theirs is different because they have to play in a week. We got to play in 3 weeks or almost the game's 3 weeks, so you can't get a little rustier with that. But them sitting their quarterback puts us in a little bit of a similar situation, and I think we can kind of play the game out and see how it goes and be ready to adjust this once we get a feeling for it.
I said this yesterday. I don't know if you'd agree with me or not, but I said I mean, you got beat pretty good against Baltimore on Christmas, and then you come back and clinch the number 1 seed the next week. So, I mean, everything's as you would have hoped it would be heading into the last week of the season. Can that be used? Can that be beneficial, losing that game and still having the number 1 seed? Like, we got the number 1 seed, but that's kind of fresh in our mind that, you know, if we don't button things up, we can be dominant. They've shown that, but if you don't, those kind of things can happen.
Oh, I definitely think so. I mean, people don't in the NFL. I don't care who you are, and when you do play at a high level and you're feeling confident because you should, you're playing that way, but then everyone's telling you and stuff, and people on the outside don't think someone can get beat, and it doesn't matter who you play. If you're off, and in this league, you can lose a game like that. And I just go back to just watching things growing up and everything. I mean, I never thought the Patriots were going to lose. They were undefeated all year, and I remember at the last game of the year, they're going for a record, and it looks like the Giants are going to beat them. It was week 16. It goes 16-0, and the Patriots, I mean, they come back at the end like they usually did at that time, and they ended up making a hell of a play, and they won the game to finish 16-0. And then they faced the Giants again and for their 19th game, and they ended up losing that at the last second. And you always just wonder, like, man, if they would have gone 15-1 and lost that game, would that have adjusted in anything? Would that have made the Giants different? How would that have affected and played out to 3 games later? And I look at stuff like that a ton.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes when you do lose it, you see things that you might have been missing when you were winning, because when you win, it's easier to look over things, and when you lose, you want to look at everything. And that's why the more you do this, the more you try to stay the same regardless of what's happening.
Talking to 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan with us on the UMA guest line. Niners and the Rams wrapping up the regular season on Sunday right here on The Sports Leader. How different is preparation through the next couple of weeks where you won't know the opponent? Then, I mean, like all season long, you prepare for an opponent week after week after week, and now you're talking about the sort of the rest versus rust, keeping guys sharp and getting them some repetitions. I heard you talk about that with the media the other day. How does that work? What's the preparation look like?
Well, that's also what the reminder was for me and everyone on our team when we woke up Monday. It was, we earned the bye week, but understand this isn't the bye week. And that's why this week it's nice because we do have a team to prepare for. And if you go by percentages and stuff, odds are this could be the team that we're preparing for 2 weeks from now. So I kind of like it that way, you know, because it's not like there is a chance we can see this team again. So it's not just about this week. It could be about the big game in a couple weeks. So we're doing both of that right now. I mean, everything we do for this Sunday could possibly help us in a few weeks. And then when we get to next week, that's the week kind of that you're talking about. And then I am going to rest the guys. We won't know who we're playing. So everything that we do with the players and stuff will just be about keeping the rust off and having them go through just practice reps versus each other. We'll do 2 full practices, and we'll take 2 days off. We'll do 2 full practices, then we'll take 2 days off again. And by that time, it'll be Saturday, and we'll find out who we're playing that Sunday. And that's when the coaches will be preparing for a couple teams, trying to guess. But we'll come in Sunday, find out who we're playing officially, and get to work, because lots of times on Sunday you find out who you're playing, and that game ends up being Saturday. And that's only 6 days later. That's what happened to us in 19. So seems like you got a lot of time, especially when it happens. But the way I keep reminding our players after this week, when we're done truly with our regular season, and we're done with the Rams, we're going to get 2 practices in. We're going to have 2 days off, and we'll find out who we're playing, and all of a sudden it's going to be a short week, and it might be 6 days before kickoff. So you got to take advantage of every moment. We got to make sure we take advantage of this week, so when we do try to rest a little bit next week, we're not saying, oh man, we rested too much this week, now we got to go harder in our bye week. And that's why I think this week's so important that we handle it right.
I know you won't answer this because nobody in the history of sports has ever answered this question. When they ask, do you have a preference who you'd rather play in the playoffs? No, I don't. Even if they might have a preference, now of course they're not going to say they'd have a preference. But I'll ask you this way, without saying, do you watch teams and say, you know what, that team, I like the matchup in this game. Like, I think we have more advantages in this game? As opposed to maybe another team? You do? Okay.
Yeah, definitely. You got an idea of everybody, especially if you played people before. But just the most generic way to say it is most people, if you have your choice, you like to avoid the better quarterbacks. Yeah. That's always the hardest thing in the playoffs is the top quarterbacks.
No doubt about it. What is it about the quarterbacks specifically? We all know they're tough, but what about them when it comes playoff time makes them even tougher to deal with?
Well, just when quarterbacks can be so good, and again, there's not 32 in the world, but when you get those guys who can just get on and who have that ability and been playing it all year and are in a good scheme and they can get hot, and some of those guys they're just hard to deal with, no matter how good of a defense you have. And so the best thing is when you can play against someone where their guy's hurt or they just struggle in that area, because then usually a good defense can shut them down, and you got to make sure you don't turn it over and things like that, and can make the game just a little bit easier. But when you got guys who it could be a shootout and who are tougher to stop, you always going in hoping to change that. I don't care who it is. Everyone has off days, and you can slow people down and you can stop them. But you got to prepare throughout the week, because what some of these guys are capable of, and you got to be ready for that game to go any way possible. And those are usually the hardest ones to deal with.
Yeah.
Kyle Shanahan with us, a couple more minutes on the UMA guest line. At this point in the year, I was wondering, are you guys still keeping it? Do you still monitor free agents? Do you still talk to guys who are available without naming names or anything like that? Is that still something that's happening at this time of the year? And how difficult is that to even do to insert somebody if you were to add somebody on?
You mean guys who are available?
Who are available who are free agents?
That's something that John and the whole personnel department they work on all the time. Just because whenever something comes out, we can have an injury on the field at any time. Yeah. And so, you have certain practice squad guys available. You have guys who have been, we say, on the street waiting. And that's why we bring guys in and work them out all the time, even though we're not planning to sign someone, because they're just constantly studying those people. And they have really a list that goes in order on who they think can help us the most at each position. And when stuff happens and we need a player, that's who we go to.
How often when they say, because it happens in football a lot, when they say you just did it off the street, how often does it get really off the street? I'm like, you must have been in some kind of shape, right? You had to have been doing something to play pro football.
No, yeah, I think that's the way of just saying it, but it's all that means is they're not on a team.
Sure.
If they are just literally coming off the street, as in the way you're saying it, they're going to pull a hamstring the first day in practice, or we're going to see in the workout that they're not ready to go, and we're not going to sign them.
Yeah, the couch is the other one. Yeah, I pulled them off the couch to go play.
How you probably haven't studied Flacco. You'd have no reason to study Flacco, but just how surprising is it to you to kind of see, a guy that was raking leaves, taking care of the family, obviously still working out, but you know how hard it is to play the quarterback position. It's mind-boggling to watch this guy do what he's doing right now.
It really is, but I also think, anyone who's had time off and stuff like that, it's so hard to get thrown in the heat of battle of this league and stuff, but I don't think people have ever given Flacco enough credit for his whole career. I think he's been one of the better quarterbacks of the last 20 years. I thought he was unbelievable in Baltimore. He's a guy that we tried to get here 2 years ago hard before he went to the Jets. Flacco has always been that type of thrower. He's always been tough and hang in the pocket. He's got elite arm talent, and he's a smart guy who's been around a lot of systems, and his skill set never left. Just sometimes you don't get that opportunity. You're not a starter anymore. You don't get in the best situation, but it's always kind of blew my mind on a number of places that he was going to be available at this time of year, because he's always had some unbelievable talent. He's put on a lot of good stuff on tape, and that talent obviously is still there.
So let me ask you this. Let's see if you'll answer this. If you're down by a point with 1:50 left in the game and you have 3 timeouts, you trying to call those timeouts to extend the game a little bit more, or you just saying, let's get to the playoffs?
Man, that you really know how to ask the tough ones. I'm not right now, because I haven't thought through that yet. But no, I'm just joking. There's probably a good chance. I'm not trying to risk our guys by that time of the game. Just to keep it real. Probably not trying to risk our guys by that time in the game. But we really do like to win. We like to beat them too. So I don't know how I'm going to feel in the moment, but and I want our guys to know we're going for it. So we'll deal with that when it comes.
There you go. He may like winning more than Chick-fil-A. Hey, Coach, congrats on the number 1 seed again. Best of luck this week, and we'll talk to you again next week.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Hey,
talk to you later.
All right, take it easy, Coach.
I was 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan. He joins myself and Tom Tolbert every Thursday of the football season. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champion Dennis Brown, John Lund with you here at Levi Stadium ahead of the Niners and the Rams coming your way at 1:25. In about an hour, we'll hand it over to Greg and Tim to take you all the way up until kickoff. But first, let's get you a player to bank on. Sponsored by Casino Matrix. Just drop in for gaming, dining, sports. Please gamble responsibly. 1-800-GAMBLER and by 5 Star Bank. Learn more at 5starbank.com. You guys are always such chalk with your picks for the player to bank on. I figure I'll probably body you again here. Dennis, I'll let you start with whatever pick you're going with today.
I mean, who can you go with? We don't know who's going to be out there. I mean, we're player to bank on. I don't know. Who can we bank on?
They're going to run the ball today and run the clock. Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason.
Well, Elijah,
Jeremy Nichols, who is ever running it for the Rams. Royce Freeman, the former bat for Bronco.
Royce Freeman.
Somebody like that. I mean, it's the guys to bank on today will be the guys running the football because it's going to be tick.
I would hate to say. I'm just going to say defensive line. I mean,
boy, you guys are really hitting this one out of the park. You guys really nailed this today. A player to bank on, and you said the guys running the ball, and Dennis said defensive line.
I'm saying is
can I get a name? The only name I heard was Royce Freeman.
No, I gave you like 5 running backs who are going to run the ball today. He just said defensive line because that's where he played.
Yeah. Okay. How about you know what?
This is bad, guys.
Let's go.
This is really bad.
You can't group me with that.
We should have talked this over before. How about Javon Kinlaw? Let's just go. Let's just say
that was Matt's guy. You can't take him.
He was my guy first, though. He was my guy first.
You brought it up.
Fred Warner.
You know what? I'm not even going to. I'm not even going to bother. I can't even bring myself to your guys' level.
I told you, Jordan Mason.
That's your player to bank on. That's your player to bank on. Do you know who I'm going to bank on? I'm going to bank on Ricky Waters coming through. Ricky Raging Waters is our YouTube chat.
Turn the water on.
Ricky Waters is our honorary captain. He's going to join us in just a bit here in studio. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, John Lund. It's the Niners and the Rams, Week 18. We'll get you some scores when we come on back, and then we'll talk to Ricky Waters, who joins us in studio here as the honorary captain. Niners and the Rams at 1:25 right here on the Sports Leader.
This is my opinion and my opinion only. I don't think there's another corner in the National Football League that's playing better than Travarius Mooney Ward. So kudos to him and being elected for his first Pro Bowl, and hopefully that predicates also in All-Pro, because I think he's playing at that caliber level.
As the voice of 49ers defensive coordinator Steve Wilks talking about his Pro Bowl and who John was calling an All-Pro potentially, Charvarius Ward, who's having an incredible season for the Niners at cornerback. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, John Lum with you here. Niners and the Rams coming your way at 125. We do have a slew of games that are underway right now across the NFL, and many that are going to help decide the final playoff positioning and teams that are going to get into the playoffs, both in the AFC and the NFC. Let's run through some of these games here. Is, by the way, an ugly game in New England between the Jets and the Patriots. It's not a game that anybody's really paying attention to for anything other than it may be Bill Belichick's final game in New England, which is something we can talk more about.
I don't think there's any doubt.
It's basically a blizzard right now in New England. 6-3 as they go into the half. The Jets just clanked a field goal off the bottom left corner of the upright to go into the half, still with a 6-3. Well, they're about to go to the half. I guess 4 seconds here before halftime. Patriots are sitting on the ball. It's 6-3 in favor of the Jets. Falcons trail the Saints right now, 17-14. Saints have to win in order to win the division and get into the playoffs. They own the tiebreak over Tampa, right after Tampa lost last week. 6-0 Tampa over the Panthers right now. They're at the half. Falcons are down 17-14, I said, to the Saints. The Bears and the Packers come up a little bit later at 125. A lot of people think the Bears have a good opportunity here to knock off the Packers. Eagles are at the Giants at 125, and the Seahawks are at Arizona. Seahawks need to win to keep their playoff hopes alive. They need a loss by the Packers to the Bears. Seattle, though, at Arizona. Again, I called him the landmine last week with Kyler Murray. He helped the Niners out, got the win over Philadelphia. Chiefs and the Chargers play in Los Angeles at 125, and then the Cowboys have to beat the Commanders this afternoon in Washington in order to clinch that number 2 seed and win the NFC East. Jaguars trail the Titans right now. They're winning in as division winner. They're losing out if they lose to the Titans here. Titans are up 21-10 with 10 seconds remaining before the half. Jacksonville is driving. They're just outside the red zone there with 10 seconds remaining. Vikings trail the Lions 13-3. Vikings, do they have an opportunity here to still get in?
They do.
They need a lot of help.
They would win. Obviously, they would need to win, and then they need Green Bay to lose as well. They need Seattle to lose.
They need Seattle to lose.
So they would need a lot.
And the Vikings, as you said, John, have scouts in attendance. We'll talk about that in just a sec. Lions, again, up 13-3. They are winners of the NFC North, and the number 2 seed is still in play for them as well. They can get the 2 seed. If the Cowboys lose today, they would jump up with a win to number 2. Bengals up 24-0 on the Cleveland Browns. Jake Browning, 2 touchdown passes in that one. Joe Mixon's got 9 for 90 and a touchdown. The Browns are going in as, likely just 11-6 will be their record, but Joe Flacco resting today. The other 2 games to come, of course, Rams at the Niners at 125. All the afternoon games kicking off at 125 today, and the Broncos are at the Raiders at 125. A lot of these teams could be looking for new head coaches. How many teams do you think? How many new head coaching positions going to open up this offseason, John? Raiders?
Raiders are already be open. I don't know if Antonio Pierce is going to get that job. I know that Mark Davis probably wants Jim Harbaugh, but I think the Chargers want Jim Harbaugh. So I think with he hiring Don Yee, who's a big-time agent, he's probably going to leave Michigan whether they win or not. We're all hoping, like Dennis does, that Washington's going to win.
Yeah.
And then, that could get a domino effect because does Tennessee keep Mike Vrabel? I mean, if I'm Tennessee, I do, but if maybe he wants to leave because he wants to go to New England to take over for Belichick, where does Belichick end up? I mean, that's probably the number one story of the offseason. Bill Belichick is probably not going to be the Patriots head coach. So if you're a team, again, Mark Davis is a guy that is said to want Belichick. The Chargers could be looking into Belichick. I mean,
Could you imagine Belichick as the Vegas to the Raiders? Can you imagine that? That'd be wild.
I cannot.
I mean, that's the thing that's so tough to place him is one defensive coach. You've got to go to a situation there where you've got a defense probably fairly built and a quarterback in place that can help you win. This isn't a long-term situation. This is kind of like Bruce Arians coming back out on the defensive side of things to go to Tampa. This is kind of like that. Can he go somewhere where they're set up where he can win in the next 2 years? That's what you're banking on if you hire Bill Belichick. It's like a 3-year deal where you're turning over the franchise. You hand him the keys to the organization and say, can you get me to a Super Bowl or win a Super Bowl?
Yep.
in the next couple of seasons. But Jonathan Mayo's on the right. Jonathan Mayo's on the table there. Or Jared Mayo's.
Yeah, Jared Mayo, the former linebacker there. You could have three. You could have three teams in the NFC South looking for coaches. I mean, the Panthers already are looking for a coach. Buccaneers, if they don't get in the playoffs, there's talk of Todd Bowles.
You mentioned Titans, yeah.
Dennis Allen, if they don't win, the former Raiders coach could be out there. There's talk of Arthur Smith with the Falcons. So everybody there. Robert Saleh, our old buddy now with the Jets, is he going to be able to use the excuse that Aaron Rodgers didn't play? Or is the New York media going to be too much for that one? So that's one that could be up in the air. So there's a ton of them that are up in the air as far as everybody goes. The Bears, Eberflus. There's a lot of people who think that the Bears could upset the Packers, much like the Lions upset the Packers, with the Bears being as hot as they are. That game is in Green Bay. So there's a lot on the line. And I think probably the number one job of the offseason is the Chargers. Harbaugh, Belichick, a lot of people want to work with Justin Herbert.
David Shaw, former Stanford head coach, a potential head coach in the NFL somewhere, or an offensive coordinator, he could be added. What do you think is the right fit for a team like the Chargers? Because, one, you got to deal with Spanos, the owner, which is a headache in and of itself. They were in over their heads this year. They spent so much money, more than anybody did in the last two off seasons, on defensive free agents. They bring those guys in. The offense just does not click. Herbert gets hurt, of course, but you've got weapons all over the place. Austin Eckler's guy scored 20 touchdowns a couple of years ago. The games have been mismanaged. The defense has been hurt while very expensive. You and I, John, were saying, philosophically, I've always believed in going with an offensive-minded head coach, because if you get a defensive-minded head coach and you have a great offensive coordinator, the likelihood that O coordinator is going to get plucked to somewhere else is much greater than that of a defensive coordinator. By nature of the way the NFL works today and the game operates, you want an offensive-minded guy. I would rather get a defensive coordinator who knows what he's doing, like Kyle's done here with his offense, put them in place with the defense and say, hey, you got an expensive tool over here, go use it, and let me worry about Justin Herbert and getting this offense up to speed.
Yeah, and you got a great talent in Justin Herbert, right? He's one of the premier quarterbacks, I think, in the National Football League. Young, strong arm, tall dude, athletic kind of guy, and you got a good defense. You spend a lot of money in defense, so I offensive guy that can kind of nurture that quarterback and nurture the talent you have on offense. Then let your defense kind of do what your defense does and get a defensive coordinator that kind of runs a coordinator. But you got a lot of talent on that football team.
Plus, it's L.A., so that's why I think Harbaugh fits or Belichick fits, is because you look, the Rams, they have a coach, good-looking guy, star kind of a guy in Sean McVay, and they got a lot of stars on that team, especially offensively. You've got to do the same thing, but what you've got to do first and foremost is you have to maximize Justin Herbert. To me, that says an offensive guy, but I wouldn't be surprised. Like, if I'm Jim Harbaugh and I'm going to the league, you always tie yourself with a quarterback. But I got to find out, too. Here's the other thing about the Chargers. They don't have a general manager either. Tom Telesco is gone. So you've got to decide, okay, how much power do I get? So Belichick leaves New England. Does he get all the power that he had in New England?
People are going to go Adam Peters and Bill Belichick. That's what they're saying.
And I would probably think maybe Adam Peters could be gone. There's a few of those jobs available. But as a head coach, you got to look at two things. Who's my immediate boss and who's my quarterback? Because if you're going to tie yourself to a quarterback, well, that's why the Chargers job is so big. But they're not going to go with a young guy like they did in Brandon Staley, who came on. He was the defensive coordinator of the Rams. They need an established guy. They need a guy with star power to get some people to watch that team, because it's really difficult. They just don't have a fan base. Every time you go in there, you think the Rams are bad. The Chargers, every time they play, they're outmanned by their opponent. So they've got to get a coach who can get the best out of Justin Herbert. And then, like you said, I think you hire a big-time defensive coordinator, because they could be a team. We always talk worst to first kind of things. If they push the right buttons in the offseason, there's no way they shouldn't be challenging Kansas City at the top of that division.
It could be Brian Griese in some conversations for offensive coordinator as well after the year he's had with Brock Purdy and this 49er offense. Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown, and John Lem with you here from Levi Stadium. Ricky Waters, our honorary captain, going to join us here in studio shortly. And we're also going to hear from 49ers All-Pro Fred Warner, who was the 49er Player of the Week with Murph and Marcus earlier this week on KNBR. We'll let you know what Fred Warner had to say next. Niners and the Rams at 1:25 right here on the Sports Leader.
You definitely want to keep the floor going, but you also want to give your body a rest. So I feel like we'll play this game for a good bit just to keep the groove going and not, take too much time off. I feel like we're going to be going this week, like as in practicing hard and continue to do the things that we do. We just got to keep building and, we haven't played our best ball yet. So we just got to continue to get better and better each day.
Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, John Lem with you. Niners and the Rams are going to wrap up Week 18 in the 2023 regular season today from Levi Stadium. We'll have kickoff for you right here with Greg Papa and Tim Ryan at 1:25, and we'll also check in a little bit later in the show with Tim Ryan before we hand it over to the guys to take you up until kickoff. Before we catch up with Ricky Waters, the honorary captain for today, he's going to stop by in studio. Fred Warner, the 49er Player of the Week from last week. He joined Murph and Marcus, and Murph opened up the conversation with Fred asking him how 2024 was going after locking up the 1 seed here in San Francisco.
Man, it's been great. We're only a couple days in, but it's been fantastic.
Sure has. I'd love for you to kind of take us back to Sunday, just we'll get into all the X's and O's and the football stuff, but I'd love to hear some of the vibe. The game ends in Washington, and you guys are trotting down the tunnel. Can you just tell a story or two of what it was like to kind of come down that tunnel and maybe get some word that the Eagles might be losing, and then maybe the locker room viewing party? What was the story like?
Yeah, man. I mean, late in that fourth quarter, they're showing on the big screen the scores of the games around the league, and we saw that it was a pretty tight game between the Eagles and the Cardinals, and we're like, oh boy, it's coming down to the wire. And so obviously we win, and then we're coming down the tunnel, and they had that phone right there showing the Cardinals going in and punching the ball in to take the lead, and we're like, oh my goodness, like this, they're about to pull this off. And so then we go in the locker room, we're watching the final moments of the game, Cardinals win, and we get the 1 seed, and we were just like obviously over the moon, because to secure it with a game left is just big time.
I've been seeing a lot of Instagram live stories of NFL locker rooms where guys are breaking out cigars. The Raiders seem to be doing a lot. Somebody else did. Anybody break them out for the 1 seed?
Wait, I'm sorry. Say it one more time. I missed the first part of that.
The cigar parties I've been seeing in Instagram Live. Max Crosby and the Raiders. Did you guys break them out for the 1 seed?
No, we. So that's actually funny you say that. So the crazy part about it was, like, all week we had talked about how we got to win the last 2 games in order to get the 1 seed, because we didn't know this was going to happen. We obviously required 2 teams losing this week and us winning to get the 1 seed. So the mindset was to go into Washington, and we needed that win, especially coming off of a loss. And we didn't pack any cigars, we didn't pack the confetti or nothing. We were just ready to win 1 game, and then to find out we won was just, I mean, we couldn't believe it, because we weren't prepared for the other teams to lose.
And Fred, when you get a win like you did this past week and then obviously see the results of that Cardinals and Eagles game, I know everybody wants to celebrate being the number one seed in the NFC, but I remember when we spoke to you preseason and you talked about how the goal was Super Bowl or bust. So how important is having the number one seed on the path to potentially winning a Super Bowl?
Yeah, it is important. It is. I think the fact that we have to play one less game in order to make it to the big game is everything. You see with the other teams that have had the one seed last year, the Chiefs and the Eagles having the one seed, and how that turned out for both those teams making it there. It is important, especially this time of the year. Guys are banged up, beat up, and the ability to just win 2 games instead of 3. I think that's just a really big deal.
Hey, Fred, we're talking to Fred Warner on the Yuma guest line. He's our 49er Player of the Week here on the Murphy Marcus Show, and just congratulations to him and the Niners on an incredible goal achieved. Is there something to the new 17-game schedule making the one seed that much more important? Because you guys play a violent physical game, and the NFL is making you guys play an extra game. Does that make, even compared to years past, the one seed would be that much more important because of the 17-game grind?
Yeah, the season is a grind. It was a grind before they even added an extra game. So I think you have the extra game. At the end of the day, is it a huge deal in the grand scheme of things? I don't think so, but it is really important to have a week of rest, for having that one seed, regardless if it's, 17 games or 16 games. I think having a week where you get to rest is big. And since they changed the rules were not the 1 and 2 seed abides, but only the 1 seed, that shows the importance of getting that top spot.
All right, we're talking to Fred. Fred, so here I'm going to give you a chance to brag about your teammates. You're such a leader.
Oh, yeah.
I want to ask you, I know, right? You don't want to talk about yourself. You want to talk about your teammates. I want to ask you about one offensive guy, one defensive guy, but the defensive guy, I saw you quoted after the game, is number 7, Charvarius Mooney Ward, and he has just turned in a year. The Niner corners have, is a fair criticism going into the season. Is that a weak spot, right? And the year he's had. I heard you talking about him after the game. That was arguably the play of the game, 20-10 ball game when he makes that pick. And I heard the story that you were calling him AP in summertime, trying to will an all-pro season for him. What can you tell us about your relationship with him and what he's done?
Yeah, man, it's been so special to watch because, being there since day one of him getting here and watching the progression of him as a player, the work that he puts in, his confidence growing more and more each day. And, you mentioned it. I think back in 2019, 2020, when I was starting to get a little bit of praise, and I remember George Kittle started the name Pro Bowl Fred for me when I was a second-year player, and, kind of trying to start the buzz around me playing well. And then soon after that, it was All-Pro Fred. And those things, I think, matter in terms of a player's confidence and believing in themselves because at the end of the day, Mooney has had this ability, this talent, to do the things that he's doing. He's had it all along. It's just the level of confidence that he's playing at now, knowing it and believing it, going out there every Sunday and making plays, big, huge plays for our defense. It was always there, but just to be able to help build his confidence up, I'm so happy for him. He fully deserves to be an All-Pro this year. I'm sure he'll be a Pro Bowler as well. And we're going to need him big time down the stretch here. This is where all of our playmakers got to step up and make big plays. But can't speak enough to how proud of Mooney I am.
And we definitely know that you guys have a lot of playmakers on that defense. We talk a lot about complementary football, and I think a big reason why your defensive backs are playing so well this year is because of that defensive line up front. And, of course, as a linebacker, I've got to ask you about the big boys who take up a lot of blocks for you, whether it's Bosa, Chase Young, Armstead, or Hargrave up the middle. How much does that D-line help just you and the entire defense?
Yeah, that's where it starts, and that's where it's always started since I've gotten here. That's been the core of not only the defense but of the team. I think I think Coach Shanahan and John Lynch they take the D line really serious, and you see in the decisions that we make to get big time defensive linemen and getting guys in the draft. Everything starts up front. When you have a D line that's as disruptive and as big a force as they are up front, then it makes everybody's job easier. And I think we have one of the best in the league, and we do have stars, across that starting line, but it's the depth, it's the guys that are coming in the second and third groups that are, it's just wave after wave of guys being fresh, going out there and just being disruptive. And when you have that, that's when the big plays are created because, things get knocked off. It cleans things up in the run game. And, we do a really good job up front.
Talking to Fred Warner, who, of course, like he mentioned with Moody Ward, himself an all-pro Fred Warner 2-time. And that's the kind of weight he carries around the 49er locker room. And I want to go back to, again, that visit we made to Santa Clara where we talked to you before a morning practice on, I think it was August 1st. And at that point in time, we didn't know what Brock Purdy's arm/elbow was going to be like. We didn't. I mean, there was hope, and he was making good progress, and he was returning to practice. But man, oh man, Fred, it was a big question mark. And then flash forward to Sunday afternoon in Washington, D.C., or Maryland, I should say, and you guys are hugging him up and congratulating him on the #1 single-season passing yardage in 49er history. I don't know what you can share with us or share with the listeners, the fans out there, what the Brock Purdy journey has been like from your perspective, what kind of relationship you have with him, and if you had any words with him Sunday when he broke the franchise record.
Yeah, I mean, that's another one that's really special. It's just been so cool to watch that journey. I mean, people don't realize how short a journey it's been so far. He's only in his second season. The fact that he's accomplishing these things that he's doing, the most passing yards in franchise history with all the amazing quarterbacks that have played in this franchise, and to do it in his second year is insane to me. But it's not at the same time because the things that he continues to do in just the second year. Now I know exactly. You know exactly who he is at this point. You don't have to sit. Nobody has to go around and say, what's Brock Purdy going to do? What's he about? Like, he's a legit MVP candidate this year in his second season, coming off of a major elbow surgery because he's made of the right stuff. And he obviously played a lot of football in college, and that shows in his poise and the way that he plays the position. But the humility, the ability to go out there every single day with a chip on his shoulder to get better, regardless of the outcome of the game, regardless of where we're at in the season, of where he's at in the season, that's the sign of a true competitor, the sign of a true leader for our team, the guy that we got to look to. And so he's done everything the exact right way, man. I'm super happy for him. I know the sky is the limit. He's going to continue to shatter records and do those sort of things. And he doesn't even care about those things. I know he doesn't, but he's going to do it just because of who he is and how he works. That's another guy we're obviously going to need big time, but really happy for him.
And that 4-interception game could have damaged his confidence. Instead, you see him rolling right and pointing Brandon Ayuk to that open spot for that play of the game.
Yeah, exactly. And his confidence is unwavering. That's the thing I noticed as a rookie last year. When he got called up to be the starter, I knew I didn't. Usually, with a rookie quarterback, and as a leader of the team, you want to usually go up to him and let him know, like, hey, you don't got to do anything too big. You just kind of go out there, do your thing. But for all season long, I saw something in him, and I was like, from a poise standpoint, and I was like, you know what, I really don't feel the need to say anything to him because I feel like he's got it. And like he showed that through and through last year. And I mean, just continuing to do that this season, he's been amazing.
It's absolutely incredible. And then more to come in a couple of weeks, man. The story will continue. Mm-hmm. Okay, so those are all the really, really good stories and positive stories, and you guys have achieved a ton. You're the 1 seed. Now here comes the negative question here, Fred, so you can buckle down. Well, I would imagine, though, almost that you, given your character, you're such like a hardworking guy, I would imagine that this is something that you're going to meet head on, but like I'm looking at the list of missed tackles this year, and you lead the team. You lead the team in missed tackles, and it's more than you've ever had. So I'm just wondering your reaction to that. Like, is there a reason? Is that a deceiving stat? Like sometimes stats are deceiving, or does that piss you off? What's your reaction?
Yeah, no, I mean, stats don't always tell the truth, the whole story, right? I think, some missed tackles are valid. There's times where I got to bring my feet. I'm leaving my feet on contact, or I'm not wrapping a guy up. Super valid. There's other ones where I'm trying my hardest. I'm running from one side of the field to the other. I'm trying to lay out to make a tackle for my team, and I don't make it just because I'm playing hard, or I'm trying to really decleat a guy, and I just happen to miss. So I'm not really overly concerned with that. I think the thing about it is, even though there are those missed tackles, I'm still on track to break my career high in tackles this upcoming game. It's like, am I really just not making the tackle. Like I for sure it's something that I have to improve on, but at the same time, I think I'm always in the right position. I got to just make sure I'm being smarter in some of those situations.
Do you know how they measure a missed tackle? Because if you're sprinting dead out and you're diving at a guy, that's different than a guy like running through you. Do you know how they measure them?
I don't know, and that's why I usually don't pay attention to it. But I'm watching the tape. My coaches watch the tape. I'm always just focusing on what we talk about internally. But other than that, I'm not sure how they measure it.
One of the theories is that you and Dre and guys like Nick, but you guys play so much, is that fatigue becomes a thing, and that makes maybe that this coming week and the bye that much more important. Is that true too? That like a missed tackle could be a result of fatigue?
I wouldn't say so. I don't know. I just, I think just sometimes, like I said, you're playing so hard that you might miss one or maybe something else. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, Fred Warner, middle linebacker for the 49ers, of course, our 49er Player of the Week on the UMA guest line this morning. And just to kind of piggyback off the fatigue narrative heading into the last regular season game of the season, Fred, I know we're already talking about it. I'm sure talking heads across the country are going to talk about it. Is the rest versus kind of fatigue kind of factor going into this? Do you want to rest or do you want to be rusty? And with the opportunity to maybe take a week or 2 weeks off, what's your kind of mindset about whether or not to play next weekend and how long of a break that could affect the 49ers moving forward, the 2 weeks being off?
My mindset is playing this week. That's always been the mindset. Obviously whatever the head coach says is what's going to go. But my whole mindset is playing this week against the Rams, getting a win, and winning out back-to-back years in the division.
If he tells you, hey, Fred, I don't want you to play, is that something you just have to you just have to grind it out and say, okay, coach?
I'm always going to listen. I'm always going to listen to whatever the head coach got to say, So, if that's what his decision would be, then I would, of course, listen.
Hey, listen, congratulations. 1 seed is a huge achievement. Whether or not you guys play this week, that's up to the coach, and it sounds like it's a pretty good situation. As you guys think about this, Fred, the only plane that you might get on now is to Vegas, right? Is that the mantra?
Man, that's the goal right there. It's about one at a time.
One plane ride left, but one practice first. There you go. So thanks for being our Player of the Week, Fred. Congratulations on an incredible season and the 1 seed. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it, Fred.
All right, guys. Appreciate it.
Great stuff there. 49ers Player of the Week this week was Fred Warner, and he was on with Murph and Marcus on the KNBR Morning Show. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ Dennis Brown, John Lund with you here. Niners and the Rams are going to wrap up the 2023 regular season at 1:25 is your kickoff, and we'll have it for you right here on KNBR. We are streaming, of course, on KNBR.com, the KNBR app, YouTube, twitch.tv/thesportsleader, and you can always listen, of course, on KNBR 104.5 and 680. When we come on back, we will get you our 49er Player Spotlight, the Steve Young Show. Still to come, of course, our conversation with Tim Ryan, who will be on the call today with Greg Papa for the Niners and the Rams. That's coming up next, only here on the Sports Leader. Adam Copeland back here with your 49er player spotlight ahead of Week 18. The Niners and the Rams, and both teams have their playoff spots all sewn up. Niners know that they're off next week. The Rams don't know who they're playing next week, and they will find that out later today after all the games wrap up, of course, finalizing tonight with Buffalo and Miami for Week 18. So let's get into our player spotlight for today's game. It's going to be a game between two backup quarterbacks. Carson Wentz, who, by the way, has no stats this season for the LA Rams. He's got a career 62.6% completion percentage. Spent last year with the Washington Commanders, 11 touchdowns, 9 picks, did complete 62.3% of his passes, pretty close to his career average. That was over 8 games. He was sacked 26 times before his career in Washington ended. He's going to be opposed by today's 49er player spotlight. That'll be Sam Darnold, slinging Sammy Darnold on the year, 12 of 20 for 108 yards passing, a touchdown and a pick. He's completed 60% of his passes, sacked 3 times. Most of his action came against Baltimore on Christmas Day after Brock Purdy had thrown 4 interceptions. He left the game with that stinger in his right shoulder. Then he comes in, Sam Darnold did take a sack there and threw an interception as well. Let's get into what John Lynch had to say about his backup quarterback, Sam Darnold, his work ethic, and how excited he was for him to come to San Francisco and get this opportunity in Week 18 against the Rams.
But what I've been more impressed with is, number one, his interest being here. But then once he's been here, what a teammate. He works. He's, you always hear this about first guy in. I can tell you with Sam Darnold, I'm an early morning workout guy. And we started, my group that, I work out with starts at 5, and Sam's not far behind us. He's one of the first guys in. He's one of the last guys. He's really committed to just making the most out of this year. He's earned everyone's respect, and my goodness, is he a talented thrower? Again, yesterday out at practice, I mean, he can do some things. You talk arm talent, it's a buzzword thrown around, but if you want to see what arm talent is, just watch Sam Darnold. He can do some special things with the ball. I think he's really taken to our offense. We're, as an organization, just thrilled with Sam, and I think everyone's excited that he's getting the opportunity to go play this week and see what he can go get done against the Rams.
Well, John Lynch did say that Sam Darnold had other opportunities for more money to go elsewhere to be a backup quarterback and decided he wanted to come to San Francisco and play in this offense. He gets an opportunity to start for the first time today in a game where the Niners don't need to win, but he could be putting something on tape here, depending on how many throws he does get to make today to try to find his next employer. More to come here. Sam Darnold is your 49er player spotlight. We'll get into it a little bit more with the Steve Young Show and our conversation with Tim Ryan next on the Sports Leader. Steve Young, the best half hour in radio, joins myself and Tom Tolbert every Wednesday evening in the 5 o'clock hour. It's always a hit. We had him for 35 minutes this week, and we had a conversation with Steve this past Wednesday about how great and rare it is to have a season like this for the 49ers, and he praises it for the engagement and the position of the 49er faithful.
In the NFL, the truth comes out, and great seasons like this, they're rare. And you should relish them. I think the fans are feeling that. They're feeling the uniqueness and the special nature of the season and what's happened. And with Brock, it's a movie. It's a movie script. That's Mr. Irrelevant now is leading the league, and so it's all the stuff that you just have to really love. You talk about love in sports for the inclusivity. For we're all in it, and the Bay Area is completely energized, like it hasn't been for a long time, about this team, these guys, including Brock, and just the excitement for that brings it. So this season that he's had, like I said, great seasons are great. You got now the next season comes up in the playoffs, but absolutely incredible season and incredible efficiency. Really, I got to tip my cap to Kyle that's built a system that can be so incredibly efficient. I give you that stat. You lead the league in yards per attempt with just your throws behind the line of scrimmage. Yep. Stat blows my mind that you can lead the league. That's the efficiency and the uniqueness of how these guys are doing it, and it's amazing to watch.
yeah, there's a good chance we're playing this team in 2 weeks. So I think both sides will be pretty vanilla on that. I'd be surprised if there's too much stuff, but we also know each other pretty well, both teams and the schemes. And when we play each other, I don't think a lot goes into that anyways. Every game affects the next game, so we've got to be smart how we do everything.
Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, John Lund back with you here as Kyle Shanahan, the 49er head coach, was there talking about how careful they've got to be today. And it's an interesting one to navigate, a much different situation than back in 2019 when they got the bye in the first round of the playoffs. And here to talk about it, a man who will be on the call at 1:25 and even sooner than that today, Tim Ryan with Greg Papa. Tim Ryan, what's going on, man? How are you?
What's happening, boys? Happy game day.
Happy game day. We just talked to Matt Mayoko a little bit ago, and he said, he felt coming into this one, it was kind of like entering the final preseason game.
Right.
Doesn't quite have the exact same feeling because you're going to see some of the starters. There's a little bit more on the line in terms of not wanting guys to be out there too long and get hurt. How do you navigate this one? Who are we going to see?
Well, I think, first of all, there's going to be a lot of guys out of this game, and you guys know all the players that are not going to play. I'll be surprised if Trent Williams plays. To be honest with you, we know that Brock Purdy's already been called out of this game. McCaffrey with an injury, he's not playing. Juwan with an injury, he's not playing offensively. And we'll see how long Feliciano plays, if he does play with his back injury. But you only have so many players, so a lot of guys are going to have to play. I think we're going to see, the stars play early, and I don't know how long, couple series, 2-3 series maybe for Kittle and Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. I think Sam Darnold's going to play 4 quarters, and I'm fired up for Sam. I'm fired up to see him get an opportunity. Who knows where he's going to play next year? He's been such a terrific team player and a big asset to Brock Purdy this year and to this football team. I want to see him get 25 pass attempts. I think if Kyle, in a perfect world, he'd probably want to go out and take a knee 65 times if he could and just get out of here. So they're not going to scheme to win. It's probably going to be a lot of day one install stuff, so it's about execution. Here's the whole thing, and Dennis knows this as a player. If you're on the field, play like it's a real game, and it is a real game. You cannot go out and play cautious. You can only play this game at one speed, and that is full freaking speed. So I would expect some good stuff early in this game. And again, I just hope Sam Darnold gets 25 pass attempts, because I don't want to see him oiled up, and God forbid they need him in the playoffs, oiled up, turning and handing the ball off. I want to see that arm oiled up and him ripping it down the field. He had a great week of practice, and I hope we get to see some of that on offense today.
Yeah, and when I look at games like this, it's kind of tough for me because we were old school guys, and we played through a lot of these type of games. We did preseason, we did late in the football season, but it's not the same. The NFL's a little bit different. Let me ask you this. Guys, you talked about the guys that you might need, second-tier guys, in the playoffs. It's important that you play at a super high level. Right. Who are the guys that you're looking at today that get the opportunity to go out there and kind of show what they can do that you're looking forward to seeing?
Well, and I think these guys are going to play a lot. I think Logan Ryan on defense, as he continues to digest this 49er scheme. Obviously, he's a veteran. He's got Super Bowl rings. He's played a lot of football, but this is a different scheme for him. And with T. Gipp out at safety with a quad strain, Jair Brown out with a knee injury, I think we're going to see Logan Ryan. They don't have a lot of safeties up. I mean, they had to call Taylor Hawkins up from the practice squad. So looking forward to watching Logan Ryan in this defense. Looking forward to watching Darrell Luter when he gets out here in this defense. Looking forward to watching Robert Beal in this defense rushing the passer. I think he's going to play a lot. Want to continue to see Chase Young and Randy Gregory continue to get better within this scheme. And I think one guy we should all put our eyes on, because Dennis, you got to earn the right to rush the passer in this league, and you got to stop the run. Teams that can stop the run and run the football are going to keep themselves in games. I'm going to watch Sebastian Joseph Day a lot today. I think he's going to play a lot. I don't think you're going to see Kinlaw play 4 quarters. Certainly no Javon Hargrave for probably more than a couple, 2-3 series. So the 49ers have got to play better run defense. I think we could all agree on that. They've given up over 5 yards a carry in the last 4 games. And when you watch the Rams and how they play, and they're much improved on the offensive line. The rookie Avila, the left guard, is more than solid, certainly for a rookie. Kevin Dotson, who they got from the Steelers late, and they went and traded for him right before the season started. seems like a perfect fit. Their favorite play is that crunch duo, right, where they double the defensive tackles and let the running back pick his hole. And there will be no Kyron Williams in this game. Ronnie Rivers, Royce Freeman. Those guys are going to play a lot, and Sean McVay wants to run the football. With Mike LaFleur in there as the offensive coordinator, and those defensive tackles are going to have to chew on double teams. And that's what teams run against the 49ers as a bread and butter play to get themselves in 2nd and 5. I'm going to watch Sebastian Joseph Day, the old Ram, the former Charger. He knows what's coming. Let's see how he holds up versus those double teams.
Tim Ryan's in the booth. Gets ready for the home regular season finale, the Rams and the 49ers here on the Sports Leader. What can Kyle and the staff do? Because from last week in Washington, that win, then, of course, they get the unlikely win by Arizona. They become home field throughout. What are they going to do in this time to keep guys sharp?
Same school as
I think the most important thing is to go out and execute today. But I think, the week of practice was super important, and it was a good week. And it's not easy, both, the 49ers offense practicing against the 49er defense and vice versa. So I think it's all about, going out there today, getting out of this game healthy while guys are out there to be able to execute. But most importantly, stay sharp in practice throughout next week. And I think they'll have at least 2 days of practice as they prepare, to get ready for the divisional, since they won't be playing in the wild card. So that, to me, is what's most important, Johnny.
Talking to Tim Ryan here as we're getting ready for the Niners and the Rams. A 1:25 kickoff coming your way on KNBR 104.5, 680, the Sports Leader. My grandpa and I used to go to every Giants game, last game of the season, especially days where they were locked up already in the playoffs or they were out, because you used to expand the rosters to 40 guys, and then we'd get a look at a bunch of the young players, and it was cool because you'd see a whole day of a bunch of young dudes. It's not quite the same thing today, but is there any young guys? I know Ronnie Bell should be out there a lot today. Anybody you're keeping an eye on that you're excited to see out on the field today, Tim?
Absolutely. I'm excited to see Ray McLeod back in the 49er uniform. Returning punts and playing wide receiver. Chris Conley is he's been up for a handful, maybe a few more games. Would love to see him get an opportunity. He has been clearing out defenses all over the place when he has played. So he's a guy I definitely want to see be able to touch the rock. I got a sneaky feeling, fellas, Charlie Warner is going to get himself a tug today. Charlie Warner is going to play a lot, and he's going to be part of the passing attack. So want to see that. Braden Willis, we've seen that rookie. I mean, it's going to be sprinkled with guys all over the place. I'm excited I'll tell you the guy that I want to see, and the young linebackers, obviously, and we'll see how much D. Winters plays, because you got Flanagan Fowles and you got some other guys. I think D will play a lot. Jalen Graham. I'm excited to see Darrell Luter and Robert Beal do their thing. I think Luter's got a lot of upside. Spent a lot of the year, rehabbing his knee injury that happened over the summer. He seems like he's getting better and better. And Robert Beal now, 5th-round pick, out of Georgia, has got a different skill set. He has got high octane. And I was talking to him during the week. I said, if you make a mistake, just make it at full speed. And full speed for him is like a 4.48. He can really fly. So I want to see him have an opportunity to rush the passer, and hopefully, Carson Wentz will hold the football. He just got there in November, and he is a guy that typically is going to hold the ball. He's a tough sack. He's a huge son of a gun. I'm looking forward to seeing Robert Beal try to tattoo him.
Before I let you go, Tim, is there a starter you expect to see play more than others? Is there a position group or a starter that may be out there more?
I think, you don't have a lot of offensive linemen. I think that's an area where they're going to have to play. Aaron Banks is going to have to probably play a lot. Jake Brendel is probably going to have to play a lot. Spencer Burford going to have to play a lot. So that's probably the group where I think those guys, as they move into the second half, they'll start trying to get those guys some rest. But they don't have really a backup center unless Feliciano, and I'd like to see him get out there and play a little bit of center. And I want to see Jeremy McNichols carry the rock a little bit in the second half. I think the last thing you want to do is go wear these running backs out in this game with Elijah and Jordan Mason.
Well, Tim, we've done 16 of these. The 17th game today. Niners are 12-4, 9-7 are the Rams, and we know we're getting another one in a couple of weeks, man. Enjoy the game today, and we will talk to you soon. See you upstairs.
All right, you guys enjoy the game. Great talking to you. A lot of fun this year. Thank you.
It's been a great regular season. Niners come in today at 12-4, an opportunity to go 13-4 as they are the number 1 seed in the NFC playoffs. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, John Lund, wrapping things up here. We'll hand it over to Greg and to Tim here in just a couple of minutes. Just a few more updates or to recap what we know about today's players or who will be on the field for the Niners and the Rams. We know that it's not going to be virtually any starters for the Rams today. No Cooper Kupp, no Kyron Williams out of the backfield, no Matt Stafford. Puka Nacua is going to start the game. I would imagine he's not out there for more than a couple of series. They'll probably try to get him the rookie receiving record.
He needs the yards, and he needs like 29 yards, and he needs like 4 catches.
Yeah, so they'll get him that, and then get him out of there probably by the end of the first half, maybe by midway through the second quarter. He'll be out of the game, you would expect. For the 49ers, Juwan Jennings going to remain out in concussion protocol. He has that concussion, and they say he should be ready, or Matt Mayoko believes he'll be ready in a couple of weeks for the divisional round. Ray McLeod was activated, as you heard Tim Ryan talking about there, so he'll get on the field just a little bit, they believe. Chris Conley and Ronnie Bell should see a lot of them in the receiving game. J.P. Mason maybe early on, not so much Elijah Mitchell, but maybe a bit. And then Jeremy McNichols was activated from the practice squad, so he should see a heavy workload in the second half. Trent Williams, Tim Ryan says, doesn't think he'll play.
No, because Jalen Moore is healthy now, because he's going to start. And then he mentioned Feliciano, and then remember, Banks has a toe issue.
Yep.
Ben Barch, 78, he talked about center getting Brendel out of there. Barch might move over to center not Feliciano. And then Matt Pryor's another guy that people haven't seen very much of. So, again, that's what he said. And then he's mentioning Charlie Warner as guys. So, we kind of debated this all week long, and now we're here. They're not going to play many people. I mean, that's just the way it is. And then he mentioned the same thing that we mentioned earlier. They're not going to throw it a ton, but I think they want to get Sam something so that he can maybe get something on tape. So, on average, Brock might throw 27, 28 passes at most in a game. I wouldn't expect Darnold to throw more than, say, 22, 23, because it's handoff, get out of here, healthy, run the clock.
Dennis, anybody you're looking forward to keeping an eye on today?
No, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, we talk about Sam Darnold and, this offensive line. I mean, if he's someone you're going to need in the playoffs, you got to protect him. We say he's going to run the ball, you can run, but you might want to, he's gonna have to pass the ball at some point, and he is your backup quarterback. This offensive line, and it's kind of a patchwork thing. We'll see how this offensive line plays today.
For you, John, who are you keeping an eye on? Is there anybody you want to see, or what's your focus in the game today?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, some of these young guys that haven't gotten a lot. I am excited to see what Sam Darnold has done. We talked so much about him in the preseason, see what he can do. Along that defensive line, we haven't seen some of these guys play. We haven't seen a lot of, some of these guys. He mentioned Robert Beal as a guy that, 51 is what he wears. He's going to be out there a little bit. See some of these guys. D. Winters and Jalen Graham are guys who played well in the preseason. We're going to see those guys a little bit. Darrell Luter Jr. is a guy that, that before he got hurt, they were really high on him. They thought, this guy might be able to contribute. Then he gets hurt. He's from a smaller school, so let's see what he can do. You never know in the playoffs what's going to happen. So I think what Kyle's doing here is, he wants to not have guys get hurt that are starters. He wants to not show the Rams anything. But these are a few guys that, to them, this is almost like preseason. To them, this is a big deal, because they might be forced into action if there's an injury or two in the playoffs, and this is invaluable action that they're going to get today against the Rams.
Well, and John pointed this out, there's still a bevy of options for who the 49ers could play. They're dwindling now as the morning slate starts to wind down a bit, but still do not have the results of the Seahawks game, of course, against Arizona, and the Packers are taking on the Bears later. That's going to decide a lot in terms of who the Niners play and where the Rams end up playing in the first round of the playoffs. But because of that, there's a lot of scouts here today on hand to see this game. And Kyle's goal, as Matt Mayoko said, is to make sure they don't give anything to those scouts from Tampa, Dallas, Minnesota, Philly, Green Bay, Detroit, or Seattle, who are all in attendance to watch this one today. Adam Copeland, Super Bowl champ, Dennis Brown, John Lund with you. We'll be back after the 49ers and Rams game for the post-game show. You can stream it on YouTube, twitch.tv/thesportsleader, and, of course, on KNBR.com and the KNBR app. Sam Darnold against Carson Wentz, who is making his first appearance in an NFL game today in 371 days. The Niners and the Rams, it's Week 18, and it's coming up next, only here on the Sports Leader.